Right, greetings people, friends and viewers. Just give some context about this video. The date, what's the date? I think it's the 17th of November today. This is my hospital journal, just to journalise my experience while I go through it. And inclusive of that, I'm throwing in my testimony, life experience, which is all significant in context to my life experience currently, previously, and to come, Lord willing, if I'm alive. So if you've not seen any of my other videos, this is all these videos are episodes of like one complete video, because there's so much to cover, so much I forget, so much loose ends I forget to tie up, and with my own faults and weaknesses it's very difficult. So I've learned this method for my own benefit, and I also trust in the grace of the Lord to make up the difference where I lack, by His glory, by His wisdom, by His power, and I trust in that absolutely, as long as I don't lose sight of the prize and His way and His will. And I've got the window open because it's one of those days I love. It's raining. I love the rain outside when you're indoors. So I visited my father yesterday. That was the second visit, the 16th, and that was very hard, but very, all things were good. It's a ship shape. Grateful for every single person I met. Put all the things behind me, forget, but not completely forget of the dangers that are still there. And I know that even people I spoke to, I think, are starting to realise that a false impression, there's been some skullduggery, but no one's really sure, because I've got although I'm blind, because it's done in the dark, it's done in secret, what is the activities against you, you only get the end of, and you only try and figure out, well, what was that reason for? Like blatant lying and omissions of those lies and the truth being kept between the cracks, because no one in hospital knows what the other one's doing, and that's where the exploitation goes on amongst individuals. Sometimes it's deliberate, sometimes it's just human error, and I always allow for mistakes, but I can discern between the two, where somebody's just not equipped, or that's not their fault, that's the fault that they've been put in through compromise, and this way the system is, they're only servants in the system. So I recognised the dangers, and I spotted a few questionable people by their conscience, by asking them questions, who are responsible for, in part, in my dad's care. So I've got my eye on those, and I pray the Lord will move and protect those vulnerabilities for, deception and bad behaviour among all the good behaviour. But that's what I want to be grateful for and highlight, and just clarify that in the experience, I'm not totally against it. I don't want people to, I don't want the people that are used and deceived to be the scapegoats for the people and protagonists of it, to keep expending people at their own cause. So I'm journalising the sequence of events, because to articulate it's impossible in one sentence, and this is where you get chewed up when you have to address it, when you can't avoid addressing it, because it's senseless addressing it, because you're up against the same denial and hypocrisy and of the sinful world. It's business as usual, and everyone is powerless to do anything, because they're just following. They're being obedient to the regulations, and they're trusting in those 100%, and they haven't got time to query what I'm talking about, and the ignorance of world history and this kind of activity and conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. You know, evil's a conspiracy against good. Doesn't matter what vessel it uses, whether that's ambiguously or by design. It's the same. It's black and white. It's right or it's wrong. And people are caught up in the propaganda, the propagated way of thinking. You know, it's either this or that. There's no alternative. And if you don't fit into the status quo and the the moulding and the political correctness, you're separated. You're not part of them. Therefore, you're against them and you're victimised. You're a nuisance. You're put out. So this journal is also an update on, following on from a previous video which I'm editing at the moment, because I come home last night. I went to the hospital in the same time in the afternoon. Similar experiences, but I was up against this oppression. But it all went smoothly, thank the Lord. But it was a more sober, it wasn't sort of like, like heaven carpet just rolled out before you. Although that was there, it was more like wading through fudge yesterday. I left an hour and a half. I gave myself an extra half hour than I did the previous time, and measuring from a point nearing my destination, I realised that I wasn't doing as much and I wasn't stopping as much as I was the previous time on the way. I realised I was flagging, and it was like mind-blowing how that could be possible, but I know that was the Lord's doing. And again, the Lord done something with time. I don't know how. I was late, I was running late, and I covered this distance, checked my watch, and I thought, how can that be right? It's like I'm not late yet, and I should have been about 15 minutes late. I should have been about a half an hour late, and I ended up being 10-15 minutes late. And measuring from the same point from the previous time I was walking, in the same, and I was more tired yesterday and fatigued, and I was struggling to walk, but I was pacing it more than I was yesterday. And I checked the same time at the same place, and last Friday I had 10 minutes left, and I checked the same measurement from the same point I was, and I was like 25 minutes or 15 minutes, so I knew I was behind, and left a half hour, included a half hour in the journey, so I couldn't work out where those extra 40 minutes had gone. So that I wanted to share the Lord says to share, to glorify. I think it's in the Old Testament too, in the Proverbs, to the Jewish believers of the Old Testament. Same God, same principle, and that is to glorify God in your doings, to share what the Lord has done in your life, and praise is to be an expression of gratitude and thanks for Him and what He does for people, so other people can see that and know what they're seeing, rather than dismiss it. Oh, that's just Hong Kong Fooey, there's other people helping you in this kind of thing, like a secretary who's doing all the detective work, while the clown Hong Kong Fooey solves all these crimes, but it's not really Hong Kong Fooey, it's his secretary. If you remember what I'm talking about, the cartoons from the I think it's the 70s, Hanna-Barbera, I can't remember the people who done them, but the corporation and cartoon people who done Hong Kong Fooey, Yogi Bear, Wacky Racers, Dick Dastardly and all that stuff. It was one of those cartoons shown to children after school about this Hong Kong karate kicking dog who was a detective and solved all the crimes, went after all the international criminals, but he had this, he was an idiot, but he just had this, he winged it, and there's this grace behind a cat as well that helped him not have an accident or fall into trouble while he was just clowning. So he thought he was doing all the work and taking all the credit and glory, but it was all the people behind the scenes. That's kind of like the Lord does in our lives for us, where we're just like either broken, or we struggle, or we're weak. The Lord calls the weak and the foolish. So I wanted to share include the fruits that I saw in my life, that the Lord's helping me, He's with me, as I know that He's with all His children's lives, and even the world at times, and they don't see the mercy and the holding back of the consequences of what. The Lord is merciful. He doesn't want to judge all in one chop, because it would be over and done. It would be final. And He's mercifully stretched out, and He works through all the mess, all the problems, and He helps people. He works among that, so the innocent and the vulnerable don't get caught up in the injustice. So He's always delaying His judgments, but His judgments are already in action and final. So He's delaying, working through slowly His master plan to sift the wicked and gather out the righteous unto eternal life. That is simply what is going on in the world. So thanks and praise to the Lord for that day. So I came home. Now I've had an opportunity to visit my family, and hadn't seen them for a long time, and because we're going through this experience, it's one of those things that humble families and brings them. We're a kind of family, we all know. This is my mum's side family. We're all, we all love one another, but there's differences and things that get involved in families, and we've each got our good side, and we've each got our guilt and faults, and sometimes it's difficult to overcome them. As a family unit, you don't know where to start. And so when you get those opportunities like a marriage or a family event, and I'm sure all families can relate to this, funerals, it's really the only time that brings you together, because on your own you can't humble yourself enough, overcome, because it takes everyone to be in the same frame of mind, to be on the same page, and to be humble, honest about your mistakes, and loving, to build those bridges. So to do it off your own back, to bring people together, usually if it's done with the right intentions, or there's people that are holding back, it doesn't work. So it takes one of these events to bang your heads together, and that's unfortunately the cycle of my mum's family. My dad's a single child, so my father hasn't really experienced those sort of family dynamics. It's something I've only experienced being a child of coming from a very large family, with all its ups and downs, all its blessings and all its curses, and all its history and the effects of that through every family, from that's passed on generationally and into the world, which is a generational continuation of the past into the future. And our families, like all families, are among that. So when we have these opportunities, we're not selfish people. We're not perfect people. I'd say my family are beautiful, but they're vulnerable, but they're sinners. They can be as bad as just anyone else, but they can also shine above other people because of their hearts and what they've inherited, but they don't appreciate, like all of us, we don't appreciate what we really are, and it's hard to accept when somebody among you is got more of a gift or a talent, and it can be resented. That talent can be resented, but everyone's got a talent within the whole dynamic, and if you accept be content with your own station, and then don't resent somebody who's more blessed than you, or a family that is more popular than you, or is more homely, then there becomes this Darwinistic, who's best, oh, he thinks he's better than me, and there's all this confusion through this stupid playing one person off another when it all comes down to it, we're all the same. It's just hard to accept, there's always, in our family, there's always been one that's like takes over the role of the matriarch, and then there's a competition for it, and there's always one that takes over the alpha, and there's a competition for that, and there's resentment. But these roles are it's like leadership, if it's a good leader and he's considerate of the whole body and he wants everyone to be brought up to his understanding and strength and ability to lead if he wasn't there, so if you've got somebody like that, he's fair and just. And if people know that, and that are people because only one can be captain on the pitch, that's just life. But you can all be captains with the captain on the pitch for everybody else, for the whole purpose which the captain is serving, which is love and the best for each person. But there's no family like that, because we're fallen and we're sinners. We'd all ideally like to be like that and live those principles, but in reality that takes everybody to be on the same page, and if nobody's on the same page, it's not going to work. And then you get these leaders who think they know it all and then try to control, but you need charity, you need love, and you need that grace. And if you don't have that, you cannot lead, and if you're not in that position to lead, you're not going to be able to follow and support the leader in what they're doing and accept your role as a soldier or a lesser degree of responsibility, because you're going to resent it and think, I could do better than that. And this is the trouble in all lives, in individuals, in families, in the world, in ideas and philosophy, which is Darwinistic, or that one species is better than the other, but it admits the real reason why it's like that, and that's because of lying, disobedience to doing what's right, the omission of the truth and sin, and then it tips the whole scales and on it goes, like that analogy about lemmings jumping off the cliff, that nobody's told them that it's stupid, come back and told them, well, don't do that because you die. But apparently lemmings don't do that in their natural environment, but it has been used as an analogy where all these lemmings or puffins or queue in a long line and jump over the cliff, and they all follow because nobody's come back to tell them it was pointless, so all the rest just think, oh, go along with it, this is what you do when you're a lemming, that kind of and that's a reflection of life, because people don't know they've been robbed of the truth because they haven't got the truth and they don't believe the truth. And everything in the world set up is against the truth because it wants to keep you from it. And the bondage of them having that knowledge over you, so you can't be independent, you can't make your own decisions, you can't evaluate who's lying and who isn't lying. So it keeps you in bondage, in ignorance to lies. And this is what all I'm doing this for, is to share and equip people like I've been equipped, because the Lord is loving, he wants to help and bless everybody. But if people don't want to realise that they're sinners, need that they've offended God, and he's not going to tolerate it, and there's consequences to that, not only on the individual but the whole world. So if you're on the bus of the world and you don't believe in Jesus, you're guilty for everything problem in the world. Whether you think you're super duper, you're doing good and you're charitable, if you're not on the foundation, if you're not on the rock, you're on the sand. And you're on the bus running over all the vulnerable innocent people and taking no blind bit of notice of all the victimisation, all the injustices, all the minorities getting crunched out. And what the world will tell you, all's well, Black Lives Matter, global warming's the most important thing. all these snake oil, all these little deceptions, and not telling you what the real truth is. That the people who say that, oh, we're going to be carbon neutral, what a joke, right? Carbon neutral, right? What we're going to do, hold our breath? Not use electricity that is from power stations. What do you think power stations do? So all the people making the money are the ones leading the charge of this global crisis. And what was that young girl's name? Now, I don't fault what that young girl was in her heart and her concern for the environment. You know, I completely concur with her, and every child does. It's a fact. No one with that heart wants to see cruelty to animals. They don't want to see pollution of our environment, because we all have to eat from it. We all have to survive from it and sustain ourselves from it and live in it. So we don't want to pollute it. But the people generating the pollution are the same people and power and influence behind everybody generating this nonsense of a solution, which will be to tax you and lead you into a regulatory body of control. It's deceptive. So there is no carbon neutral, and the CO2 is a load of rubbish, because if you just examine it yourself, go to a horticultural site, don't have to go to a more kind of underworld like cannabis cultivation, but look down the same lines as how a cannabis cultivator would grow food, but look into the knowledge of food cultivation, hydroponics, industrial scale hydroponic food production and commercial production. It's the same principles of growing. Now there's all sorts of good principles applied to that work, and there's negative principles to make money and deceive people, to save money and profit. So if you don't know what the right way to do something is, you won't see what the wrong ways are. Now I know what the right way is. Now I can tell you from supermarkets what, like succulent vegetables like cucumbers, if they've been grown hydroponically en masse daily, like 24 hours a day in hydroponics, you don't know what it's been fed with. Now I know what is in the good food, and I know what is in the artificially man-made foods, genetic components, chemicals, chemical nutrients that you can't get out, hormones is the thing, because all these things are forced on quickly for quick profit and to manufacture. They're not like you're growing in your own garden and you get the quality, you're providing for yourself. No, this is a mass scale, providing to cut corners, to make profit and to have supply, but it's lacking in the quality. So they're trying to work on the flavour, they're trying to work on the deception to make it as good. They think that they can do it better than you can grow it in your garden. It's a nonsense, unless you do it with the right motives and principles. And if you've done it with the right motives and principles, it wouldn't be profitable, because it would take too much time. Or you could, but it wouldn't be agreeable to everyone else that's doing it, because it makes them look bad, so they wouldn't want you up there selling your healthy products among all the crooks and all the deception that people rely on that food and that food without question. So you've got to check what's in your food. So these hydroponic things can look nice, taste nice, but they don't do anything for you. There's no nutrients in them. They're all hormones and stuff that they can't flush out the water, which is in that product. Might be a minute traces. They might justify that as acceptable, because it ain't harming you immediately, but it's having a detrimental harm on you overall. So unless you see the dynamics and you've got the principles of right and wrong, how to do something correctly, how to do something for the right motive, you're on the sand, and you can't see that you're on the sand because you don't know what it's like to be on the rock, to have these ability to problem solve. You think of the FA Football League, or the competition, and all the leagues and all the associations. It's a Freemasonic hierarchy. Now, when you go to the ground, you got the below, then you got VIP season tickets and the royal box. You see, now you can compare that to society. Now, I'm not saying that the Queen's part of this, because the Queen could just be, it's a platform to honour the Queen and her to honour the choice of the public to have these things. So she can look bad by just going onto that platform, for instance, because they got their hands tied, that they need permission to do things. And if they haven't got public support, they are bound. But the whole hierarchy forget the class system. There's only two classes. It's us and them. The evil and the sinful, who potentially want to do good and right or join the evil. So there's a whole disconnect, and the people who are above in the top floor don't know. They're deceived, they're naive, and they are raised in that mentality to have leadership over you. But the trouble is, they've been robbed of the ability to do it, so they're sharpened, because it's all crafted, it's all the education system's been tweaked and it's been iniquitized. So it's an elevatory system, so it's that they're above everyone else and they're the decision makers and leaders. And of course not everyone's like that, because some people have got some salt in them. Some people are righteous and they do things properly in that position, and it has no bad effect, it has a good effect. But the thing is that the lie is that the people below that in the public stand have simply had their opportunities robbed. They've had their biological cultivation interfered with by all sorts of means and lies and regulations, which allow toxins which have an effect on the development. They have poor quality this, they're lacking in the knowledge of that, and they're poison with this, and they're got toxins of this, and they come out with all these incapacitating afflictions that affect their development, and they're robbed and they're kept down. That's what it's designed for. And then the people above you you're dependent on. But what that side of education have been given is the ability that they're not telling you. So they're not passing on their gifts, they're just proud in their gifts, sharpening their gifts, and complicit with they're not giving you the gifts that you got so you could be like that. And you could be like that, it's nothing stopping you if you wanted to. But it's to keep people in ignorance and subjection and stunted in the face of it's equal, we're doing this for equality, it's lies, deception. So you're robbed of the ability to solve out your own life, even though you're quite capable of it. But the illusion is, and the thing put over you by regulation and the law and the education system is robbing you of that, so you're dependent on the crooks who run it. That's been going through history. Clip your wings and then you're dependent on their wings to fly, but you can't fly, so you've got to trust them at every turn without question. It's kind of like that, a bit more refined. And this is what I kind of I'm trying to inject into this experience. So in the hospital ward yesterday, now this is where I see, and other people start to see, what has gone before me. Now that might be a consequences of my own sin and the effect that has on the reactions of other people, which is true some of the time. But also among that mix is the threat that I know is organised, and it's the same. It's always the same hand, and I've researched throughout the whole broad knowledge, and also that knowledge broadly in history, going through time, it's always been there. But it has different guises, it has different methods, it has different hands, it develops. But it's always there, the same principles there, the same truth is there, and it's all out there to be researched and established. The trouble is, people have been dumbed down so much, put down so much, they haven't got the confidence. So when they go to put the dots down and they have to do all the research and put it all together, it's too much for them. It's impossible, so they give up and they just carry on regardless. But you have to, you know, you can't, it's not like, it's like family history, like, and I'm not talking about endless genealogies, you know, trying to trace the human race back accurately. You can't, because of lies and evil and people changing things. So when you go back to look at the history, you just go, oh, that must be true because it's on record. Well, that might be a false record. So there's all these anomalies that can distort the picture and the truth about history, which is the case we all know through history. The victors write the history books, and it's the researchers and the people on the ground trying to get the truth out that point out the contradictions and tell you where to look for the evidence, and then that's researched and that continues on through history. There's like the truth's been put out on the street, the dominance of the world keep the lie going, and then the people that have been shut out of it and they're opposed by it will always try and get the truth to the public, whereas the people in charge and leading want to keep the public dumbed down from the truth, so they destroy conspiracy theory, tinfoil hatware, and they bring out, and they're the main protagonists of all these conspiracy sites, all these stupid videos that are online that make people look stupid. It's their people doing it, you know, and then it saturates the thin. So you've got to look at all the videos, but people ain't got time, they can't be bothered, they're too lazy. I don't know, they're blinkered, selfish in their bubbles, in their own self-deluded, lustful, sinful, selfish bubbles. And we've all got that nature. We can all enhance that nature, and we've all got the opportunity to get the victory over that nature, but we need another nature within us for a contrast to see what that nature is in the first place, so we can overcome it by that nature that's been given us, that has overcome it for us, who is never the nature that we are. He's a heavenly nature. And unless you believe that, you're not going to receive that and know that for yourself, to have it in your life, so you can see the truth, because you know it's the truth, because people speak, but they don't want to accept it as true. They just attack you, or they go into denial. They're convicted on their conscience. They know that they're wrong, but they won't admit it, and then that can sharpen them to become bitter, resentful. How dare you? Who do you think you are, you know? And you honestly say, well, I'm no better than you, I'm worse. If you think you love that person more than me, well then you're denying my love and your own, because you love them, I love them. Because you care about them, I care about them. You can't say you love someone better than me, or you're concerned about, or whatever. It's all the same thing, whether it's in different degrees or you've got an opportunity to express that love anymore. Love is love, you know. So if one love denies another's love, then it's not love, is it? Because love's agreeable, truth's agreeable. Conflict and confusion are disagreeable, because they're on the back of lies and the wrong motive, and self-denial and sin, wickedness, the omission of the truth in your life and in the world. And the world will never fix itself. So that ran and getting on my soapbox. Let's get over and get on. There's a train going by. Well, I'm going to read a psalm, inject some spiritual light and water, and it's one of my favourite psalms. And I thought I'd share it just to include in the message and the journal, and then I'll continue on with my video. Right, this is Psalm 19, and it's from the King James Bible. to the chief musician, this is David, and it's just a testimony of his knowledge and his relationship to God, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Spirit, one God. So that's how the Old Testament saints viewed God as just one. Until the revelation of the New Testament, it wasn't understood as it is in the believer today. But it's the same God, and it's the same Holy Spirit, it's the same heart and mind and will of God. Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where the voice is not heard. I'll just stop there. So basically the evidence that we see daily declares the glory of God. So that which is created, that which is designed, that which is intelligently instituted and brought to pass, is testifying that it's from intelligence, it's from a creator, because a creation, all these artworks and all these sculptures, they don't just chip themselves out, do they, like the Big Bang Theory and appear. No, they come from the creator, and we share that same creative abilities, but not in a divine sense, but in a worldly, childish, vain sense. We like to create, we like to copy what's created, because the creator creates. So everything, the heavens, the trees, all the beauty in the world declares the glory of God. So there's no excuse. It's just wishful denial. It's willful denial to shut God out because you don't want to know, but that doesn't make him true. And then all the beautiful things in families and life, all the good things, and all the things in the world for our benefit declare the glory of God. And we all know that. We all know God in that sense. Even children know that more than anybody, but they don't know who that God is and why. Because they're born lost. They've just been created. How are they supposed to know? So God's given us a platform, a probation, a playground, if you like, to experience life and come to that knowledge. That's why he gave his word and truth, to break down all the other confusions and lies. That's why he sent his son, to be a true standard of his heart, his mercy, his justice, his love, and his certainty, that all could know that. So they could get through all the bullies, all the crooks, all the liars, all the murderers, all the tyrannous corruption, plots, plans, deceptions and devices played against the ignorant. And we all know it, but we can't see where it's coming from. So God's given us this fine line of truth in his word, that we can come to know and build upon that truth. And we can increase our circumstances. He can increase our abilities. He can increase our fruits from those abilities he gives us. But if you deny that, you're cut off, and you're either swept on one side of deception or you're swept in the other. Whatever you believe is super duper. You're locked down in that super duper delusion, and on you'll go until you die. Won't know any different. Doesn't make you right. So everything that we have is a testimony to the word of God, because it's true. They agree. Like all the ups and downs, all the wrongs that we do, and all the rights that can be done are all in here. It's not fantasy. It's not made up. It's not we'll just copy what we can see. No, it's the person who created everything, giving us the principles of his purpose, of the dynamics, of the flawedness and the imbalance. Why there's injustice. Why there's right and wrong, why there's good and evil, and what the purpose is, and what the hope is, and what the truth is. There's only one truth, and there's only one way to that truth, and that's through Christ. So, and this is what the psalm's saying. The line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun. So all these things, the sun, the trees, the creation, are all, their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words, because they don't, no, it's not literal, they don't speak, it's figurative. They are speaking by their existence, and we can see them, and they're saying, I'm a tree, look at me, I'm beautiful, and we see that beauty, and we go, you know, that, or you're down in the dumps and you're just taking life for granted, it's lost its shine. But the shine's always there, it's declaring the glory of God, no matter the weather, no matter the storm, no matter the crisis on the globe or the planet, the turmoil of the environment, they still declare the glory of God. Even all the destruction declares the justice and righteousness of God because of sin and because nobody looks after the world. And they exploit people like that young girl who stood up for the environment. And they put her on the platform, and she thought that she was going to change the world's attitudes, and the people who sponsor it all gave her the platform, and that so they could lead the charge of this environmental control measures, which has nothing to do with the environment. It's not going to make the world a better place, and it's not going to save the planet. They're just going to make money on it, get more advertisement. Amazon are in on it. We're going to be carbon neutral. What, you're going to hold your breath then? It's ridiculous. And we've got targets in our own nation to be carbon neutral. How are we going to do that? Hold our breath? We all breathe carbon dioxide. So what are they going to do? Start penalising you for breathing? It's ridiculous. It's hypocrisy and unjust because it's a lie. And like what I was saying about hydroponics and stuff, if you read that science, you could have a greenhouse, seal it from oxygen so it's airtight, and you control the atmosphere by adding oxygen to the environment and drawing out, so you have a circulation, a filter, but you can control that atmosphere. And then into that atmosphere you can inject CO2, those CO2 bottles, and you can pump about 6 times as much CO2, or 600% as much CO2 concentration into the atmosphere, and those plants will go, you can increase the temperature that they can suffer, because it gives them the ability to metabolize quickly. So you can increase the lighting, increase the nutrients, increase its ability to dispersal of the moisture in the atmosphere, so it's drinking quickly, it's taking nutrients up quickly, it's digesting those nutrients quickly, and it's dispersing away, so it's drinking and, you know, drinking, getting rid of the moisture, because the plant absorbs water, then it disperses that water because of the temperature, and it sweats like us, so you get this constant staying saturated and then dehydrating, so it has to constantly drink. And that's with the lighting and the right environment, the plant will photosynthesize, and it'll turn that carbon monoxide into sugars, and it will biologically grow and increase with the building blocks from the nutrients, and it disperse oxygen into the atmosphere. So you can increase its metabolism to produce more oxygen, to absorb more nutrients, to produce about twice the size of a crop you would get it out in the normal environment. It's sort of like forced hyperfeeding of plants, and that's what the illegal cannabis growers will do. But they do it with all chemicals and GM products that you got to flush it out of. So all these people smoking this illegal cannabis are smoking all the hormones, the genetically modified components in the food, and the chemicals they use to get it out of the plant before they sell it. And you just think, do you think they've got quality control in the black market? No, they just leave it in there because it saves money and cut corners. It's about profit. And it's the same in the commercial world with producing food. If you don't know where it's sourced from and what their growing methods are, you're taking all this stuff, and that's regulated as acceptable. It's not acceptable. It's been accepted by unjust people because it profits them, because they're compromised. And they don't want you to know what the truth is. And when you stand up, they go after you because you're not of them, you see. They're all got arms linked together in this. One successful company don't want to rock the other one, and they've all been raised in the same practice and mentality. It's the same with doctors, it's the same with veterinarians. All their education's to groom them into that mentality so they can be handled and exploited. And these people are just as robbed as everyone else. And they have the same problems that we face. So it doesn't matter what stage in the society you come on, we're all facing the same delusion and trickery. And I'm trying to make all people aware of it so they can navigate it in their whatever station they're in, at work or at home. And at home it's all a level playing field because we're all families, we all suffer the same problems. Number 5, verse 5, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. And that was referring to the tabernacle for the sun. His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. So that's the heart nature of God, working through creation, and the voices of that, the testimony of that creation speaking, and his heart within it, and his whole purpose within it, because he's behind it. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul, and testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. So to have that law written in your heart, that's what the Proverbs are for the Jewish people, to study that out and to remember it daily, to renew your mind daily. Meditation in the law of the word of God, from God, given to the scribes and the prophets and written down, that they would meditate on that word to remember those key things for their own sake and their inheritance sake, their future and their children and their generations to come, so they don't break down and get sifted and strayed and caught up in all this iniquitous images and ideas and alternatives to the way, the Lord's way, the perfect way. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoice in the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, the more fine gold, sweeter also than honey, and the honeycomb. Moreover by them is thy servant warned, and in keeping of them there is great reward. Amen. Who can understand his errors? Cleanse thou me from secret faults, because no one else can do it. Keep back thy servant also from presumptuous sins. Now that presumptuous sins is almost like false expectations. I want, I expect. That's a presumptuous sin. Or I think that I got a right to have this in life. Right? You're going to get cut off with that attitude. Or you're going to succeed because you're going to be put into that pot of wicked and, well, you hang yourself. So presumptuous sins is like having those expectations, and for a Christian that could be that you're some super duper great person and you're going to get all these rewards in heaven for doing it. You're so righteous that you can, but none of us are righteous and none of us are profitable servants. We are given an ability and we're given a limit that we can achieve, and we're given a part in the whole thing, and we can either fulfill our potential, or we can diminish our potential, or we can completely lose out on any potential because we're stuck in we haven't progressed from first base, and we're like locked down, and we're stunted, we're damned or arrested for a period. So all Christian believers have the victory over sin eternally, today. And I don't mean they have it as well as if they're stuck in sin. They have the victory, but they're just not there yet in the victory in their particular life. But the victory is sure for them, at the side, waiting every step until they get the victory in this life, and then the victory in the life to come is already secure, because it's eternal, and that eternal victory is in every believer. But also sin is in every believer, and to attain that victory in this lifetime is not always easy, but it's achievable, and it's progressively achievable, as long as you're aiming for the victory and not turning from the Lord and serving the world. But if you're looking to the Lord and growing in the Lord, and you haven't got the victory yet, it doesn't mean you're not getting the victory. The Lord's not giving you the victory in your life, the victory he's given you eternally when you were saved. So anyone who dies caught in sin, and the rapture comes, or they die and they go to heaven, they've got the victory of their sin and their smoking or their heroin or their sexual problem that they keep falling back into conflict, and they haven't quite overcome it. They've been given the victory, tasted the victory, but they've slipped, and then they're struggling to get that. They don't know how to get that victory back, because they perhaps feel like they're blown it. Well, people think, well, you're not a real Christian if you've fallen back into that sin. But if you die, whatever your sin is, you got the victory in front of Jesus. The trouble is, this is the warning for Christian, that you'll have your victory, which is a free gift. But what the Lord wanted you to be doing while you're achieving that victory, or growing in that victory you've received, to claim it on earth, overall you're not going to get self-masteries, but you're going to get into a consistent walk as a Christian to prosper, and you're going to be more resilient to your unvictorious self. You're going to achieve a level of victoriousness with your weaknesses, and you'll be able to abstain from those weaknesses with a victory. But they're still there, and you can still fall into them, but the victory's yours. But if you haven't shared and built and had an indifference, and your charity hasn't had an opportunity to shine, you're not going to be very profitable for the Lord. And so when you get to heaven, you're not going to have the rewards he wants to give you, because he's given you a potential to serve. It may not be in a massive degree, and that's what you've got to discover. That's a personal thing to work out, what your limits are, what the realism is of your potential. It doesn't mean you can't aim big, and the Lord can't do great things with you, greater than, who knows what the Lord could do with anybody. Even with unbelieving people, he could do wonderful things without them realising. But it's the potential you can miss out on in this life, because you've thrown the towel in, or you've turned aside and you've given up, or you're just too trod down, too worn out, fatigued, and you're just getting, you're getting bogged down in the mire, and then you just go kicking against everything. So let's finish this verse. Who can understand his errors? Cleanse thou me from secret faults. Keep back thy servant also from presumptuous sins. Let them not have dominion over me. Then shall I be upright, and I shall be innocent from the great transgression. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. Help me, Lord, with all those things. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. So that's really the aim and goal of all believers, is to stay true to the word and stay close to the Lord. But that it's like I say, it's different horses for different courses. But the Lord, it's the same Lord. He can't deny himself. He's faithful to the end, no matter if you have a pause and a break. I come home. I got home about 8 o'clock after going to my family's. Now, as I visited my family, because I haven't seen them for a long time, they invited me in. So really, we violated the lockdown rules. Although, we weren't irresponsible. But the thing is, I'd been to the hospital. I could have compromised them. Although we took precautions, they've taken precautions, I've taken precautions, but we still were in the same environment. And I had to hug my auntie. There's nothing going to stop me from hugging my auntie. When you need a hug, you need a hug. And when you look at the hypocrisy in the world and forcing old people to go out the shops, stopping them from getting help, mixing it all up, having all this lawlessness out in the streets, and it's all down onto public shoulders to be dealing with it, because that's what they want you to do, because it conditions you into that mentality. I'll leave it on the public, it's up to them, because they think you're an idiot and you need that kind of leading. But you don't need that leading. They need to realise we're not stupid and their rules are unjust, and they just want to control you. So they dump you in these situations and say, there's the rules, you've got to follow them to help yourself. And it completely misses the reality of people's needs and everyone's inconvenienced by the nonsense of it. And the regulation, how it's just been designed in that mentality, and it just cuts everything out, it just dices everything, and then they can take advantage of that. That can be used to cover up things. When you're all in your COVID bubbles, what's going on between those bubbles? What about all the people who have not yet had a mention? There's been absolutely no consideration being given to this towards these people, and we're not aware of it, and it's all lip service. Why do the government and the royal family use the same propagation, the propaganda of the media, and they use it as an acceptable, lawful, just platform? And all that they do is undermine the authority of their own parliament and our royal establishment and the head of state. It's crazy. So why can't they have their own media channel, and why can't the public have their own media channel then? Well, of course, because it's regulated. They're prisoners and we're prisoners to this corruption and power. And that power is the devil ultimately, and he has his components and apparatus and lawgivers on the stage of the world, and it doesn't take rocket science to draw a circle around which ones are the guilty ones. It just takes people to wake up and examine it, cut through all the propagated nonsense on the alternative media, and get to the core, fine thread of the truth, and correlate some evidence historically going back in time. Work it out yourself, and it will sift the crooks on the one hand, and it will sift all the genuine people on the right hand. But it takes people's willingness to do it, because nobody's going to help you. No one's going to come out, wipe your nose, dress you, and show you and lead you out of the fire. You've got to snatch yourself out of the fire. People have to take responsibility to do it themselves. And there will always be people that will need a hand and an assistant. But it takes that. Everyone needs to start with, I need to do this for myself. Then they take that step. People who need help will have taken that step, and they say, yeah, but I've realised I need support here. And then they'll go and seek that support till they find it. And then that person can set themselves free. They can help themselves up and get out. That's why we look out for handicapped people with disabilities. We don't rob them of their independence like the regulations do and do it all for them. and then put them in these things that take them away from what the things that they would want to do, that they would choose to do if they're able-bodied. No, they put them in this dumb place, you know. So it chokes the talent of carers. It robs the ability of, and I'm not saying that that's blanket, but it robs people of making a reasonable choice for themselves. You know, and it's to help people help themselves live a life of their choosing. But it's when you go to all the regulatory care bodies in private helping these people, it's usually done on the back of that intention, but what is actually done is, well, we haven't got the money, we got to make money, so we've got to cut corners, but we've got to use the truth to let them think they're getting their independence, but what they actually end up in is a dead end and in our pocket and care, because they can't perceive they've been robbed of the truth, and they end up going through this care system which is not leading them round in circles, and it's not equipping them, it's just providing for them blindly. And then they get to the end and go, well, now I've had to put my trust in you, and I never wanted to in the first place. I've had to go through all this, and then you've dumped me. You know, and that's a common story in mental health places. 99%, you know, they hold up all their successes, but they're not successes until you measure the whole life of that person, and that person can honestly view their life honestly and tell you themselves. And I can tell you myself, I've been put on all those packages, had my complete needs and input dismissed, like I did with my father, dismissed. We know better. And clearly they don't, because they stuff up all the time, but they never come around and say, oh, sorry, I made a mistake there, I've inconvenienced you. No, they keep stum and they blindly carry on, treading on people. And I'm not saying that's everybody, but anyone who's good amongst that has to suffer that as well. So this is what I experienced on the ward, that they were under the impression that I can possibly cope with my father mentally and emotionally about the bad news, and so people have been trying to handle me through their interjections of passing on information on my behalf. So they cut me out of the picture and started acting on my behalf. I've had that before. And they don't question what authority they have, who have they spoken to, but they haven't spoken to me. Now they may be blindly acting on my behalf, presuming I am like that, and they're presuming they know better, but that's not always the case. So I arrived on the hospital ward, phoned in the morning, arrived on the hospital ward, fine, saw my dad, lovely. Still not sure really how bad it is and how much he's going to recover, but at least there's been progress in certain areas, and there's a bit, you know, we did see some, and I was invited into the physiotherapy with these 3 dedicated nurses, and I couldn't fault them, you know, they could have been behaving well, but they knew, you know, they were tender, they were patient, you know, and I just observed craning my dad out of bed, and I thought, they've invited me to see this. I thought, wonder why are they trying to put me off, because they've all been told that I want my dad home under any circumstances, and that I thought, and I've used my lawful attorney to oppose it. No, that's not what I've done, that's what's been said on my behalf, or presumptuously acted on my behalf. But anyway, thank the Lord, I got an opportunity with one of the doctors who phoned me, that I spoke to on the phone, that I made aware of all this. And I don't think she was sure of what's going on, because she wouldn't have seen what I'd been through, you see, and I can't possibly tell her everything and burden her with it, because she's right in the thick of it and blinkered in her role, in her responsibility, and she's probably got enough on her plate, you know, to spend all that time on one case. She's got 100 cases, and they treat you like you don't understand that. So I thought they were trying to do that to try and put me off caring for my dad. So I thought, right, I spoke to her, she approached me and said, "Hi, I'm the Dr. so-and-so," I think it was Dr. Carr, I can't remember, but she said, "I'm the lady who spoke to you," and I said, "Oh, thank you very much for speaking to me that day, and I'm grateful that I can, had this opportunity to speak to her, because I wouldn't have gone looking for her. I would have just picked up any progress from anybody around work, caring for my dad, and got progress report from there, because I know the progress is going to be slow. So there's no point asking every time. I just go in there, observe, get a bit of feedback, and I'm content with to leave that as it is and see where it progresses. So I had this opportunity to just say to the doctor, "Look, I'll give you my opinion. Honestly, I was struggling to cope with looking after my dad, and it was affecting my own life. I was becoming unevenly yoked, and I was unevenly yoked from the start, and I was treading water trying to bail him out of respecting his, honouring his choices, but not denying him any serious medical attention, but just honouring his wish not to go to a doctor. I can't force him to a doctor. Honour his wish to do what he likes in his own home. I can't stop that. I can speak my disagreement, and there's certain things I had to stop, like him drinking, getting the keys and going out in the car, because that makes me guilty. See, if I don't do anything to let him go out on the road when he's he was really having a hard time and not thinking. My dad would never do. My dad's not that irresponsible, but he just got to a point of despair and selfishness of a cycle of woeing in it and drinking. He wasn't thinking. He's just acting selfishly. So I had to challenge him and stop him and say, "Well, look, I'm not letting you go out, and if you go out, I'm going to report you, because I don't want to be supporting that behaviour. I don't want it to be living with it. And I don't want that kind of mentality, not keeping the rules of hygiene, and then sneaking in and having food that I've got to eat that I'm unaware that, and then then my dad would lie about it if he, and I think, so I had to deal with all this." So I was telling the doctor, I'm grateful, I'm so grateful that, not that this has happened, but at least it's severed me from the overburdening of it. I thank God. And I also thank God that it's a remedy, it's also Lord willing, he will bounce back in some degree, and that it will be a life lesson for him, and he will get the care he needs, and he will get the support he needs. So my heart was just to let her know that, I understand all this. I understand that he could progress a little and then die. I don't have any expectation. I take it one day at a time. And she said, "Oh, good, I'm glad about that. I was worried." So she's under all this impression. I said, "Look, I think when it comes to it, I'm not going to be able to look after. I'd love to look after my dad at home. If my dad could come home and I could look after him, which I can't on my own, not without all the lifting gear and all the stuff. And my dad's reached a point where he's never going to be where he was before. And where he was before, when he was able-bodied, I was struggling to manage living with him. So now he's had this stroke. He can't live on his own. He couldn't really live on his own because he'd give up when my mum died, and he'd burn himself to death or fall asleep with a cigarette in his mouth. He's careless. So I've had to live in the same house as that. It's been a nightmare. But it's been a blessing, because I had this with my mother. I had to stand up to her. When I moved back home, I didn't have a choice. So I had to stand up, exert my position and cut myself that slack and individuality in my parents' home. And with my dad, I had to do the same. So I've done it with my mum, and that you build after that confrontation and that heart to heart. And sometimes it takes a fight to humble someone, or for both parties to be humbled, so you can be honest about yourself, and you're low, so and you're loving and you're forgiving, and you want to build bridges, you want to put it right. So I had that opportunity with my mum when I was in my 20s or 30s. I think I had to, because she used to because she was emotionally wounded, frustrated, and no one would listen. She had to evoke a way of having that engagement, because my mum likes conflict to work through things. She likes a fight to make up, but not in a sick way, but it's just a poor method of not being equipped to deal with it another way, because there's no one there to meet you to help you. Whereas alternatively, my mum would have a close friend to sit by and just go 1 and 2, and that friend would tell them straight if they're out of order, or they would sympathise and help them work through it, and vice versa. But when there's no one like that around in that certain moment, my mum's frustrated with something, more than likely my dad's omission of any attention in anything. So all this frustration and angst, and she needs me, you see, because I listen and I'm compassionate and I understand the dynamic. But I ain't going there. So my mum would dig a pitfall, and she'd have to find fault in something I'd done to have a go at me, to start what's this all about, mum, really? Because she didn't know how to. She could probably do it with her friends, but she's too proud, because I was her son, to ever admit she'd been wrong ever. Not with the outside world, but that relationship, that expectation that you're still a child, you're still a baby, or you're getting over themselves as well as me getting over myself. So she would not directly say, look, I'm in a mood, I've got a problem with your dad, would you just have a word with me? No, that's too proud, my mum was too proud for that. So she would look for something to do wrong, and usually it wasn't me that done it, but it was me that would get blamed for doing it in the house. So it would be something like that, or it would be something I had done, which I couldn't say, no, I ain't done that, but I'd say, look, I've done that, but that ain't the reason for all this aggro. So I was always the punch bag, the scratch post, and I could spot it as soon as every morning. I could get up in the morning growing up at home, and even when I was going to school, and in my early working days when I was living at home working, it's the same all the time. I would be the one who, and it will be that she's calculating, guile for how am I going to institute this argument, subconsciously, I think, because she wants to get all her frustration out on someone and pour it out or lash out. So she'd be looking for that trigger, and I knew how to get around it, and that would wind my mum up. Bye mum, love you, take care, out the door. But if I tried to do that, she got wise to it, and then she'd block me. And that's what I had to confront, and that's kind of a similar sort of principle, but my dad's nothing like my mum. They're chalk and cheese. My dad's gentle and just indifferent, really. He's dissociated, like autistic. Got no clue about emotions, got no clue about social dynamics. He's just in the world of his own. So I had the opportunity to express to the doctor, I appreciate, realistically, and I only take one thing, like the Lord teaches, there's enough evil in the day to worry about, so you take one day at a time, and you don't have any expectations, because it's not in my power, it's not in their power. It's in their power to provide needs if that person isn't going to die. They haven't got power over life and death. They've only got power over ability to do something and help somebody recover when they've had a episode. So nobody knows one day from the next. Healthy people drop down dead. So hospitals haven't got the magic wand, and they can't rise up and walk like God can. We can't do that. Although there was a time where the Lord allowed a chosen amount of people to have that power and ability, but that was taken from the earth at the beginning, just before the gospel was preached to the rest of the world, because we live by faith, not in the sight of miracles for proof. The proof for the miracles comes after you've put your faith and trust in the truth and received the truth, so you know truly that those miracles really did happen. So there's no miracles today, so no one's got the power. They can only really do what with their knowledge and skills and what money's available to them, what resources available to them. But within all that mix is continual compromises and lies of our government, because no one wants to deal with the real issue. That's the Roman Catholic Church. All the corruptness, because they're all being yoked to it. They've all been compromised. That's what all paedophile rings are for, you see. It's to compromise and blackmail and keep control, keep you choked down, keep your hands tied. So you're not going to address the problem. That's what Freemasonry does. That's what all the media does. It raises up this image. Oh, it's just businesses, and the world all follows the same vein. So if you look at all these, like seeds for instance, you think all the seed varieties, right? You only really need to buy one packet of seeds. But the seeds they often supply you, and you try and replicate them, will only be a continuation of their seed. They won't give you the original parent strains. Otherwise no one would buy the flowers, because anyone could get the flower once and then they could have millions of their own flowers with the pure genes in, so you get the same results. But no, you're getting hybrids, you're getting mixes, and you're getting generational evolvement of the same seed. So they put a flower on the picture, you plant the seed, you get all these hogwash, you get all recessive genetics, and they go weak and they go horrible, because they're selling you a lie so they can keep all the truth in behind their back. And that's like the commercial world, so you're dependent on their resupplying. And anyone who gives you the truth makes them look really bad, so they don't want you on the world stage. And this is all associated to Freemasonry and the status quo of all those that rub shoulders in the world. So the truth, even government, even the royal family get caught up in these politics, and because they're a family and they've got family interests as well as their world interests and their life expectations and their desires and what they would like to do, what they would like to see corrected. But anyway, I've got the grateful to break down that any lies, any presumptuous expectations that they thought I had, and to let them know that I wasn't trying to stop my dad from getting care. I don't want him to come. I want what's right for him. I wanted my lawful advocacy with the people who are going to meet the exact needs correctly, and not my advocacy over liars who are trying to handle me away from my father. That was my point, you see. Speaking on my behalf, on my father's behalf, what I've agreed as an adult with my father a few years ago, and then them to dismiss it because they know better, lie, keep me away from the people on the ground. And when I got to meet the people on the ground, we were able to, like, you know, not completely sit down. You know, they ain't going to invite me around their house for lunch so I can let them know the full experience. No, but I could at least show that what they've been told and who I am is lies, you see. That's the only way it's going to be combated. It ain't going to be resolved. It's not going to be reported. It's going to continue. But that's what long suffering is. That's what forgiveness is for, and that's what patience is for. The Lord's sweat with that. All the wicked's withdrawn. All the good people still stand. All the caring people still stand. The truth stands, and all the wicked recede into the background. All the people who've been in error will go home. It'll be on their conscience, and they'll have a choice to change their way for good, and they go to work with a new spring in their step. I'm not against that. Even if they admit to themselves they were wrong, I'm not holding a gun to their head for an apology. I'm not holding a gun to the government's head for recompense. But I do, justice is the law's. If the law's not doing justice, it's not my responsibility to arrest people. And when you report things, that's all you can do. It's up to the law to do the rest. So I've done my bit. people who do the right thing are doing their bit, and I was quite content to just let, had the opportunity to let her know that I'm content, I'm at peace now. I've met my dad and I know he's safe. And I was able to say, well, my frustration of being kept away and lied to, that I weren't even allowed to get there. And I think she was guilty of that, but I think she's guilty of that because someone else gave her that impression of me. So she gave me the impression that there's no visiting on the ward. But I don't know, I can't. There's so many people I spoke to. How can you expect to be regurgitating all your concerns, all the lies you've just experienced from one person to the next? Because it's all unresolved, you see. So it was, and I know that that's regulation, and it cuts one people off from the other. They're looking around for permission for something that can be done, that can help. It could be urgent, and they're going through the motions. They're looking around for permission to do something of their own initiative. Rather than saying, that's what needs to be done, alright, I need permission, I'm going to go and just make sure I'm not overlooking some regulation that's a safety regulation. If they follow all the procedures and it's okay, they haven't been equipped or authorised to go ahead and get it going. They've got to wait and ask someone, and the people they ask are on another level, and they haven't got time. So it's easy to just go, it's too much hassle, leave it. So all these, like I was saying, with the world set up, with the VIP box in the Wembley Stadium and the leagues, when they have a cup match, you've got all the VIP above, and then you've got all the common people below, the ticket payers. The privilege, us and them, it's always been the same. It's not first, second and third class, it's the evil and the good. But among that level, you got lawful people acting. It's not the law and the law in people, it's the infrastructure affecting the law to have power, because of compromise and all these paedophile connections and this vice, and it all links up to the same sort of groups of people, and the kingpin of all those groups of people and the mentality shared amongst all those people, because it favours one another with this symbiotic relationship that they all get on with it because they all profit from it, but they're not all united in their views. They just utilise one another for the status quo. And the world is in denial of that activity exists because the media generate opinion. Regulations keep people blinded. Oppression keeps people tired, bogged down, and not the time and energy to go and look up these things and see for themselves. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes knowing where to look. And 100% you've got to know what you're looking for. Because otherwise you won't see it, you'll dismiss it as this, that and the other. But this, that and the other is all part of what you're looking for. But what you're looking for is the design, the knowledge of this, that and the other, and the design knowing how to exploit this, that and the other, and all those excuses that are held up, all those normal reasons why things happen, or may happen. But it's also the influence of the powers behind why those things are happening on a daily basis. And those powers that regulate are also powers that send people out to persecute people. And that's what the world's blind to, and that's what I was trying to include in this visit. So, I haven't got onto the subject I wanted to talk about yet, but I'm going to talk this. I'm going to give a few thoughts. It's kind of like I'm laying out a balloon, but it's down to you to go and get it blown up and expanded. So I'm going to try and blow the balloon up myself, but it's down for people to help themselves and to measure the truth, to distinguish for themselves, is what I'm saying true, or if what I'm saying is a lie. I'm not interested in people's opinions. I'm interested in people coming to know the truth, whether I'm giving you the truth or not. I'm still interested in people coming to the truth for them to help themselves, and ultimately to know Christ, the truth, to be established on the truth, to then go and learn truth. Because if you don't believe, you're going to view me and go, nonsense, although I could be, you'll go, oh yeah, but he's right there. But you don't want Jesus, so you'll miss the complete truth and context, and you could use laziness as an excuse not to go and get the evidence to substantiate what I'm saying. I have. That's why I'm able to and equipped to say it and share it. So I'm inviting people to just, if this is an interest, this is drawing you, or this is you're listening along with interest, and you're measuring and you're examining, and it's benefiting you, I thank God. And that's why I do it in faith. I don't know, I'm not expecting anything. I'm just doing this in between this hospital visits while my dad's in care. I don't know, I'm not going to do too many videos, because I've reached a point where, if at all I visit my dad, I will not be, it'll only be once a week, and if there's any change they will let me know. So I've reached an agreement with the people on the front line, on the ground, where I stand. Not everybody, but the one I've told should inform all the others of my views on the matter. So there's no, because all this does is shape the way people treat you, the way they look at you, because they've heard things in the staff room about you. You see, this is where the dirty-handedness comes. This is how you're handled in care. Then the people you go to are sharpened against you, and they make bad judgments, and it affects you. And I have it time and time and time again. So I praise the Lord, and it's all the Lord's doing. And I'm grateful for all those that have been praying for me. I pray you are deeply increased by you're blessed and increased in your own walks to, be even more of a blessing. And that's what everybody should want for everybody else. Not counting, not measuring, not going, oh, I'm better than him, I'm not quite as great, and bow down to them. No, it's just to look at people with love, with a just measure, and to desire them to have that same love and those gifts and that mind in them, that heart and mind in their life, and for that to be lived and seen in others' lives. So I hope that that opportunity made a difference to help that doctor, senior doctor of my dad's care, to be put at rest about any false impression or any misunderstanding, and that will level out eventually. And I gave the opportunity that I was just grateful that my dad's being looked after, and I just accept whatever, as long as my dad, what happens, whether he comes home. I said if he did come home, I couldn't handle all the people coming in the house that I would need to support me. So I said it's not a reality, it's not going to happen. It'll only happen if my dad bounces back to the way he was before, but that I know, I've seen it before my eyes, that's not a realistic reality, because he's getting older and older, he's declining, so he needs that, he's going to need that care. And that's what I was trying to say, that yeah, look, I get it, I understand this, I'm not opposed to it, and I've been treated like I was opposed to it, and I was stupid, and and that's how they treat you among their colleagues, because that's how they want to keep you. Because people are in denial of that. Children are traumatised, children are abused through that system, and that abuse continues further along in their lives. And it's to control and play with people. And people think, oh, well, they don't do that. Well, you wouldn't do it, and these kind people who've gone through education and want to help people wouldn't do it. But that doesn't mean you can go and get qualified and get a job amongst that and start working for a bigger group to do a different job, to undermine. This is what it's all about, undermine. Schools, opinions, anywhere you can get, overturn it, blur it, because it makes it collapse, and then the people are trying to collapse it and ruin it and rotten it, and the naive people and the fat selfish people all want their own way, and they want to get their own little achievements and legacies, vain legacies. I'm not talking about the wonderful legacies for people. I'm talking about the vain legacies that are going to continue on propagating the lie and the delusion. Oh, look at me, you can be a pop star and all that rubbish. You know, raising one above another and holding it up. It's unrealistic that we can all have that lifestyle, so why hold it up that it's achievable? It's a big con to rob you. It's a big con to rob your mind, rob your reason, rob your life, rob your energy, rob your money, and spend you. Watch the film The Matrix. There's so much truth in that film. You know, it's either the people that the brothers who wrote that either knew what was going on, knew of the mentality and the sort of things that do go on, or they were part of it and wanted to show people what they know is going on, because it is exactly like that. It's exactly, and if it was just creative observation, you know, what they've observed is a very fine truth in it, and everyone can see it. You know, like the red pill and the blue pill, but that's another dichotomy, you see. That's another, you don't want either pill, you want Christ, you know. You don't want to go down the rabbit hole, you want Christ, and he'll show you the whole rabbit hole without going down there. You don't need to understand all these things, you just need to understand that they're there and then you build on that understanding. But you have to do the work, and people just don't want to look, so they remain ignorant. Like the guy on the film The Matrix, he was rescued out of it, and because in the film, real food's an illusion. Now that's not true. Real, you know, matter is matter, and because we're physical matter, it is a real physical state you're eating and digesting. It's not like a virtual thing you think you're eating a real state. That's what the film portrayed. But that's not true in life, obviously. But in the film, because once he realised that it was an illusion, but it was stupid, because in the film they would eat. Now they're out of the illusion, they still needed to eat food, but there just was no food around. So the people in the Matrix, which were incubated human beings in a virtual life, living a virtual life as though they were living a physical life. They'd been robbed of the physical life. Now they were living in the dream world, believing they're living in a physical existence, and that was controlled. So, like society's controlled, so rich people could have rich food, whereas poor people would have poor. Whereas the programme everyone could have had anything they wanted. And these people on the outside hacked into the system and rescuing people out to wake them up. So that's what the red and blue pill was, to wake people up from the deception. But I'm not offering the red and blue pill, I'm just offering you the truth. To see the truth and see the similarities in that film. But there's this one guy who, once he realised it was all an illusion and the reality on the outside, he thought, no, I don't want the truth, I want to be put back. So he tried to find how he could get put back into the incubating thing where he'd been incubated from a baby, and he didn't know any different, and he felt resentful that he'd been taken out of it, shown the truth, set free. He wanted to go back. He wanted to eat an imaginary steak, although he knew it wasn't real. He wanted to just go back into the system and not face reality. So the only way they would let him, they thought, well, we'll use this guy, because we want to catch these people, so he had to compromise and lie, and he sold out, he done a Judas on all his friends to get his place back, which wasn't guaranteed, because they could have killed him, and they probably were intending to, because he compromised himself, so they didn't have to fulfill what they promised him, but because he trusted them, took the promise, he betrayed all the people that rescued him are trying to rescue everyone else. So he ruined the whole, he potentially damaged the whole, mission of the people in the Matrix. But there's so much truth in that film that that's exactly what this world's set up like. That we're in bondage to this iniquity, this Darwinistic, atheistic, there is no God dominance, and that dominance takes over the lawful apparatus and the regulatory functions, the education system, and it crafts it into the general society. This is what Freemasonry is. Grand masters of architecture, not architecture of buildings, architecture of systems and controlling mechanisms and crafting people's choices, shaping their opinions, getting them compromised into other elevatory groups where they're being raised in the same mentality, so they're more acceptable of the bigger framers. And the big, almost right at the top of Freemasonry, they believe the grand architect's Lucifer. Now Lucifer's a fallen angel, and he's a deceiver, and he's deceived these people to this false light, and the real truth is that Lucifer's God, Jesus is to stop us having fun, so they have to lie about it and be deceptible. This is the delusion. If Jesus isn't true and honest and open and light, and he done it on the open, and he never done anything in secret, he never exploited anyone, he healed everybody, and he died when he didn't have to die for everybody, because he paid for everybody's debt, even the people that are just truly unrepentant, and they continue on in that control and those lies, and being one of the elite above the world that's riding on the back of everyone else's misery. One of those people in complete denial, he died for them. So these people dominate, they craft, and they call Satan the great architect who teaches that it's necessary for evil and good to harmonise, and they are one. But that's dualism, that's Luciferianism, and that the God of the Bible isn't the only God, and Lucifer is a God equal with the God, which is a lie. There's only one God, and then all the other gods are gods of man's vain imagination. So he's the God of gods, if you like. He's the God of the pagan gods. And he's told us that these pagan gods of death, they don't care about your salvation, they're not going to save you, they're just going to deceive you, so your enlightenment's not light, it's darkness. Same with Freemasonry. But the whole, what it's telling you it is, and what it's selling you it is as a religion, is nothing to do with what it really is. All it is their apparatus to go and get your hand in it, get people to do things for you because they're deceived, but they don't know what they're doing, because they're all doing different jobs like the hospital with one purpose. But all the components don't know what the other hand's doing, they just trust the leadership at the head that it's kosher. But the leadership at the head's a crook, or being influenced by a crook, or just sitting there dumb while all the dirty activity goes on with someone on just as high up as that person, and they work round it and through the dark avenues of Freemasonry. And these people in Freemasonry don't, even the good charity work they do, don't know what it believes in. They don't even know who wrote the rules. who set up, who organised it and wrote all the rituals. He's a Luciferian. And it's to get people to compromise their law, their rights, under oath. If you're a Christian, you're denying Christ and your testimony of what the truth is, so you're also compromising, you're also breaking the law. So these people know what you like, and they know you're idiots and they're dumb, and now you can't do anything because you've sworn an oath. And if you get out, you're going to be terrified. I think, oh no, that's just all ritualistic, it doesn't really mean anything today. No, because you've gone through it, rolled your trouser leg up, you've taken part in it, you've taken the first step, and you're guilty of the whole lot until you get out of there. Even if you're the head and like the Duke of Kent, you know, even if he doesn't see anything wrong with it, or the Queen, she doesn't see anything wrong with it, and they don't do anything wrong in it, they are really loving, genuinely people who care for society, and they're using Freemasonry for that means. But if they really meant good, you don't need Freemasonry, and you don't need all the Luciferian system within it and all the paganistic ritualistic magic. It all, whether it's white magic, black magic, it's all a lie and a deception of the same deceiver, the devil. Get out. It's just simply compromising you to exploit the good people in it and do bad, because the people who set it up operate from the top and deceive people. Same with the Illuminati. You know, the Illuminati is nothing. It's almost like just a pattern of who the people are behind the Illuminati, the people who are behind the Catholic Church and the Jesuits, and the people in the Jesuits and in the Illuminati and in these secret societies. But these are, you can't identify the individuals with the actual association, like the Freemason, right? Because they could be all of these things. It's the people and the mentality and the mind and heart behind utilising these to deceive. You can't work out what's going on by looking at the face and measuring the good people. You know, oh yeah, look, they do good works, nothing wrong with Freemasonry. Because they don't see all the evil works it's doing, because it's done in secret, so you can't trace it back to the secret. That's why they have to get people in to pledge a secret and not break it, so it protects. So the majority of the good people in these systems are protecting the fine line of evil that it's really used for. It's an apparatus to undermine our law, stir up the public, you know, and all sorts of levels, all throughout whatever mechanisms these Masons are in, will have an effect in those seats. Teacher, DJ, producer. It's all to shape the world in its own image, and that's the devil behind it. And they all follow after that carrot, and they're all compromised. So they have to compromise people to accept it, so they use Freemasonry to swear a false oath. You've compromised yourself. And they know you've compromised yourself. So when it turns ugly and you wake up and want to get out of it, you've already compromised yourself, so you're powerless. And if you compromise yourself criminally, they've got a hold on you because they're blackmailed. They'll have photographs of it. Just like like I say, I went round to my auntie's, went in. And oh yeah, that was my auntie was speaking to one of my cousins, and you know, you just wave on the phone, right? That'd be recorded. They'd be able to access that. Oh look, he's a COVID. He's complaining about the hospital. But what they don't know is, because I've done that, I'm not going to go to the hospital just in case unless I know I'm absolutely free of it, or I've not experienced any symptoms throughout the whole week. I'll evaluate the circumstances when I get there. But that can all this stuff that you're doing in person, your personal life, on your phone, on your computer, is recorded. It may not be watched live, lifetime, real time, because there's not enough people to watch everything all at once, but it will be recorded and stored. So when somebody has an interest for a nefarious reason or a criminal reason, like the police have authority to every single bit of information that's gone on over your personal life, phone records, internet records, patterns, metadata, it's all what's available to the police is also available to these criminals, you see, and the evil behind and the criminality behind the regulatory bodies who control everything. The police have got to ask for permission to access it. Doesn't mean to say there isn't people who don't ask permission, because they're a law to themselves, and they'll access it through their means, through their lies and deceptions, and the police won't be aware of it. They just think, oh, it's all been set up safe, it's all secure. No, it isn't secure. We had a 15-year-old boy with autism hacking into the CIA, so nothing's secure. It's an illusion that it's safe, the internet's safe. And then they tell you how easy it is to get hacked off and your bank account empty. Oh, but it's safe. No, nothing's safe. If some bank manager wanted to do your account over and just lie about it through his teeth, you can't prove it. Unless someone takes your case seriously and investigates it and exposes the crime. But what's the chances of the crime being exposed or listened to or even bothered? You know, some people might get that treatment, others will get flogged off. So all this is all relevant to this experience, because like what affects me, it affects everybody. You know, a Christian is just a fellow person. To you know, with a heart to help all your fellow man, but we're not a brotherhood of men. We can't unite if we don't agree on the same thing, because people don't want Christ. Christians are separate from the disagreements of the world, you know. Saying the truth is not something other than it really is. The truth is from God. It's a principle, it's a living thing. Truth is truth. And all things that are good and true in this world come from that truth. Whether they've developed from that truth, they're of that truth. And lies are of the alternative, and that causes confusion. So it's black and white. It's no grey areas, it's black and white. So I wanted to just convey those thoughts. I probably missed out loads of things I did want to say. But anyway, I'm going to have a pause, and then I'm going to get on with the topic, which is the minority of minorities. Probably cover that ground, some of that ground again, because it's relevant, but I want to focus on the exploitation, the methods of these things, exploitation on the minorities in as many areas as I can think, how minority groups are exploited, how these Black Lives Matter rallies are exploited, celebrities are exploited with the idea, but it's the effect. And it's the biased views and what that creates on society. And also the exploitation of criminals who are in a compromise. Politicians that are exploited because of a compromise or blackmail. And these things are dismissed as they never happen, and then they never have happened, they never will happen. And people are that blinkered, even though that everybody knows that those things are happening in reality. But people are in this denial, and they can't see that they're in a denial until they're forced to admit that they're wrong, but they don't want to admit they're wrong because they're proud. So I want to just share that topic, and I also, because I got home late last night, 8 o'clock, fell asleep processing my last video, which I've just finished. I've just got to finish it off, and I want to do this one, and then hopefully they'll be out of the way for a minute, and I can get on with other projects and going out and about and redeeming some time and taking opportunity of the day. So, but that's really why I've been doing these, while I've been fatigued and too tired to go out and walk, and I wore myself out yesterday. I'm going to suffer the consequences for the next few days and I've got a week to recover, and then see where we are from there. So while I'm resting, and because my sleep pattern's all chopped up, I fell asleep at 8, woke up at 5, and just got back up and picked up where I left off with editing the video. And I thought, well, I was going to do this last night just to get it out of the way, and then when I woke up this morning I would have finished what I was doing and then started this. So I'm a bit behind, and that's because of I'm just fatigued. So I wanted to share how I discovered how to manage that, and also do something for the Lord while going through that, whether that's giving tracts out, whether that's making a video. But I'm getting a bit behind time, so I wanted to include a bit more about that principle that was shared about living with chronic pain or fatigue, or anything that it will apply to, and a way of measuring it and appropriating realistic expectations to your, because of your needs and your realistic capabilities of what you can do. So I'm going to cover that spoons, it's called, and I'll go over that again and give all the principles, because I missed a few things out, but I did give enough principles to somebody to work out what I was talking about from what I did say. But I want to give a bit more detail on that in case it benefits somebody, helps somebody grasp, or lightens their burden in a degree, 1 degree, 2 degrees, 3 degrees, I don't know, but whatever, that's why I'm doing it. And also for my own, to remember, because I forget all this and I got a record of it, and if it ever does go to law, I've got something to, at least, to counteract what will be used against me. So, but altogether, I'm just at peace that the Lord's sovereign. That's really all I can do, and that's what I hold to. And I can use this opportunity to reach out to the world with the gospel in my circumstance, and that's what I'll be sharing. So I'm going to have a pause and pick up where I left off. Right, had to have a break, get coffee, and I want to crack on with this. I want to get it, because I'm behind. I've got more to do and I've done this, so I just want to crack on. So I'm rushing a bit, trying to pick up threads I've missed out on, rather than going at it too fast. I'm trying to hold back and get it out clearly, but it's just, I just have to make do the best I can. Right, minority and minorities. What I'm going to go over in this video is the observations, what's going on. Now, I am going to stand by my opinion of what I say is going on, because I'm not going to question my own ability to evaluate right and wrong, and truth and lies, and doubt, or have any shadow of a doubt of what I've established. I have doubts about certain things, but what I'm going to share is what I believe is really going on, and I'm just going to share that. And observing the same patterns throughout history. World War II, that is exactly played on upon the Jews. Social engineering, it's crafting, the grand architecture of manipulating people's hearts and minds, and choices to accept bad policy over the influence of people, which can play the same dirty games to get them to choose the good policies and the right things in place. But however it's done, if it's done with if it's done with good intentions, but it's done with bad motives for the right reason, it's not going to be a true result. It's going to have a consequence and a negative effect, and it's only going to support the opposition. So it's about doing things right and doing things for the right reasons, no matter if you feel like the only way to win is cheat because everyone else is cheating. Well, that ain't going to win, that's just going to lose. So it's going to be about the exploitation of minorities, observing what I've witnessed as going out on the street and expounding on that as I'm building my understanding. And now it's up to people. I may be wrong, I may be in error, and I may conclude something else, but what I'm going to state is I believe is what is going on, and I'm just inviting people not to trust me 100% but to believe me. Go and see for yourselves, examine it, and if you come to the same conclusion of what I see and you believe it's the truth, and it turns out to be the truth, you'll know that what I am talking about is in truth, although I may be in error in slight places, and you could improve upon the way I articulate what's going on. It's not about me or winning points or being the best orator. It's about me doing things for the right reasons, with the right motives, and being honest about my disabilities and weaknesses and faults. So many things to cover, and also about the exploitation of experiences I've had where I've seen that minorities are exploited. And I'll be racking my brains on a lot of things, but I've got a few things to share. Awesome how in principle it would be done by using an analogy of sharing the mechanisms in an allegorical sense, but the allegorical content is fictionist, if you know what I mean. But the content of what I'm trying to share is true principles, because it's difficult to gather evidence for these things. So I'm going to go over that. And fatigue. I think I'll start with fatigue. So what I understand about my own fatigue, and that's due to not meeting my own needs, energy to function, and up against all this injustice that burns you out, burning myself out through not putting my own needs first and ignoring those needs. Also injury, pain, takes a lot of energy to manage pain. People don't realise how much energy it takes to manage chronic pain. I've got chronic pain, but it's not like extremely serious chronic pain, but it is a chronic pain, and I've got other chronic pains which fluctuate due to my own decisions and choices. If I choose to ignore my limitations and just thrash on with all the work that needs to be done on a daily basis to keep the house tip top and everything in order, I just can't possibly achieve that on a daily consistent basis. But I can achieve the basic the priority and the minimum, and I have to suffer the rest and pick it up when I've got energy. So it's about managing your energies to the realistic expectation of meeting the priority needs, and letting other things you'd usually have time to spend on just to suffer them and make do with what you can do realistically. And that's like when you get old, you just can't possibly cope with everything like you used to, so things fall by the wayside. So it's about the prioritising and learning and managing whatever your condition is. So I'm going to be sharing that spoons. I'll just give an insight into fatigue and how it knocked me off my feet and how it sets in daily. It's like you're getting each day, you're getting more and more fatigue. That's how fatigue works. Once you're burnt out, you're declining in that energy levels and the ability to sustain yourself and recover, because you've got fatigue, and that fatigue sets in it can set in quite deep. So you're tired to do anything at all. You're tired to think because you're fatigued. It takes all that concentration and energy just to hang on. And then you got to force yourself, you got to push through it, and then you overdo it or you underdo it. But so you know you need to recover from that fatigue, but if you're bound by responsibility, you throw yourself into it, you become more fatigued, and then eventually the wheels fall off, you crash and burn, and all the things you're worried about come to pass anyway. So my fatigue has been a learning process. Chronic pain has been a learning process to manage and deal with. It's like diabetes, you have to adjust to watching your diet, cutting out things that you used to do, and also you've got to manage in the extreme, you've got to manage your blood sugar, the excess, and too much and not enough. So diabetics have got to manage their diabetes, and they've got certain principles to do that, and they've also got medications to do that. And if they don't do that, the symptoms of that will get worse, or they could potentially be lessened, and the person can even perhaps overgrow their diabetes with their new diet or their new, but some people may not, so they've always got, I'm not an expert, but they always may need insulin. But the principle's the same. You've got to learn to manage what your needs are. You can't have other people dictate to it, because they're your needs. So you're given the tools and the equipped and the experience of other people through the care system how to manage that and adjust to whatever level of diabetes you got with, and you've got a strict discipline to follow, or you've got a strict discipline that you have to follow, that you can't ignore. Whether you follow it or not is another matter. And if you're in a care system, there's always somebody to come and pick you up where you're failing, and they can't make you, but they're going to be concerned about the consequences of you becoming ill and going blind or losing a limb, or whatever the serious consequences of not meeting those needs are with diabetes. And it's the same with any affliction. It's the same life. There's the same challenges, and there's the same needs, and there's the same things we have to do to meet the responsibility of addressing those needs and helping ourselves sustain ourselves in life. But when you've got an affliction, the world doesn't stop for you, and the world doesn't consider you, and there's not always the support there for people. So sometimes you have to solve the problem out yourself without any support, and make do until perhaps there's a time where you do get a bit of support. But you still need to, but you're still responsible for your life. You're still responsible for your need. Those people aren't responsible to do it all for you. You've got to do your bit. They can only provide what they can do. And that sometimes the people who are going to a service can't provide for themselves, so they're completely dependent on, and that's where they have to take over. Or they can take over and cross the line, that professional line that's regulated to protect people from dominating and making them do. And that's what happens in care systems, because of compromise and cuts and pressure, and it all goes sour, and then people ended up having their lives lived for them, but they're not being given the skills to help themselves, because it's misunderstood. So they're forced to do that. That person's been placed within their care. They've got the law breathing down their neck, and they need to get the job done, otherwise they're closed down. So if they've not got the skills to give the person the skills and understanding themselves to take responsibility for their needs, to meet the needs that is on offer for them to receive support, and they don't recognise that relationship and the roles and the need of that support, but then it's like a waste. It's like it makes it twice as much hard work, and that's what I used to find when all these people coming out of hospital and they've got no clue, they don't even know what they're doing there, they're just packaged. And you're working for like a private body who's profiting from that. In its heart it wants to do the right thing, but because of all the compromise it ends up cutting corners, and it ends up doing the wrong thing when it was set out to do the right thing. And then the pressures increase, people get disheartened, and then it starts to suffer, starts to sink, starts to become a sinking ship. So with fatigue it's like one step forward, 2 steps back every day, because no matter what you do, you could be more tired the next day. This is extreme fatigue if it's unmanaged, and then it'll get worse and worse and worse until you won't be able to get up, and it takes a long time to. It's like you need to have complete rest to recover from fatigue properly, complete stress-free, complete removal of all responsibility. Now, how many people have got somebody to take care of all their affairs so they can press the pause button and go and have a lie down? No one. It's unrealistic. But if it's a need, you just have to do it, and you do need the support to do it. But when that support's not available, it's going to increase the stress, it's going to increase the effect it has on your health and well-being, and you'll become ill. And it's very difficult to manage and have an understanding, and then you take that understanding to people and they treat you like you haven't got a clue, because that's the way the regulations have been written, that nobody's got a clue and you're completely dependent. And they dismiss anything you say, work it out from the ground, and they give you their diagnosis of the problem, which may not fit your needs, and then it doesn't help, it just takes you away in another direction on top of away from meeting the needs you're trying to address. And that's what I've experienced, and it's so complicated, and everybody has different experiences. So with fatigue and chronic pain, you'll have to learn, it's like anything, you have to learn to manage it. So this spoons thing has come from, inventions. The necessity is the mother of all inventions, right? If you're in any situation, you're evaluating your environment, and you've also evaluated your need to meet certain responsibilities and requirements, whether that's yourself, food, emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, and then you've got responsibility, you've got relationships, family, and you've got responsibility in serving those needs. You can evaluate what it is you need, and from your abilities or disabilities or weaknesses or lacking in skills, you can work around that and find a way to meet those needs realistically with your ability and your knowledge and your experience from being on the ground right in the thick of it, and no one should rob you from that. But that's what the authorities and the regulations are doing. And it all stems to this paganistic cult. They want to be the mummy. They want to be they encourage governments to be the parents. Takes this responsibility away from the parents. And then they try and force the responsibility back on the parents, rewritten and false. Because they want to rob people from the truth so they can carry on being the dominant. And any ignorant person in government, in parliament, or in civil life, or in the public, think they can change that. They're up against the people who set that up, and the people in government and law aren't necessarily aware of that, and they're blinkered to it. So you can't really change anything unless you change the people in there first. So you're always going to be going up against changing things for the better, because the truth is they've got their own plans for what they want for the better, and you're not included in the decision making. And that's what the lawful powers are up against. And the lawful powers are potentially complicit with that, compromised by it, or just completely ignorant that it exists. So they plough on blindly. But this, everybody doesn't need to be able to told how to drink, swallow, and suck an egg or eat a sweet. You learn for yourself, and this is a principle, working out what your own needs are in your own environment. And I discovered this insight into other people with chronic pain, which I had that car accident. It knocked me completely down. It took me a long time to get even back up, and I realised I'm never going to recover to the way I was. I'm just going to have to learn to live with this new extra disability on top of the one I had. So with all the hindsight and knowledge I'd already gained, I came across the spoons, you see. So the principle of spoons is for each individual to work out what their needs are, what the requirements are, their day-to-day life is within that environment, whether they're single, whether they're in a relationship and a responsibility to a family, or they're young or they're old, they live on their own, or they live with strangers, or they live with family, or whatever your circumstance. You've got to evaluate how much it would cost you if you were when you were able-bodied, or when you were at a level where you could function and complete those challenges and those tasks and meet those needs on a daily basis, how much energy that would cost you then. So that's the first thing you know through first-hand experience. Now you include within the calculation how much it costs you now to do, and you can't sustain that. So how much energy have you got to meet the requirements? And you haven't got enough, and if you try and do too much, it's going to affect where you are, and you're going to be able to do less in the next day, and then it's going to all fall down. So it's about realistically managing, prioritising and getting on with it, and having success with managing. That's basically how, and also help other people understand who don't consider what you're going through, who may be insensitive or completely arrogant of, walking all over you, treading all over your feet. Insensitively, you can help them come to an understanding of what it's like to live with a chronic disability or a chronic need. So you evaluate what it costs you now and how much you've got to spend. So each person has to evaluate how much energy they got being disadvantaged, disabled, afflicted, whatever you want to call it, handicapped, but you've got an affliction that needs an illness that you've got to manage, a disability that you've got to manage, how much energy you've realistically got, and how much have you got to spend it on all the needs that needs to be met. So you prioritise, and each task you've got to do, you give it a value. And spoons we use to represent the value of each task. So depending on how much energy you have per day before it has a negative effect on you, and it's giving you time to manage your life and not decline, but you can improve. So you've got to find that temperance and balance in your life to meet the priority needs. So each circumstance different. So you evaluate what your circumstances is, and you still might not be able to meet everything. You're still going to suffer for it. But every environment's different, so other things may have to be taken into consideration to be addressed in parallel to your own environment. and you might not be able to control them, so you might be left in the lurch unjustly with this disability trying to manage. So you're just going to have to, but at least you can put yourself in a better position than you were not managing it, if you know what I mean. So it might not be a complete answer, but it will make a difference for good, even if it's not the complete answer to meeting those needs and challenges. So you evaluate each task, like shopping. How much energy does it cost me and how much have I got? Because if I spend myself doing that, I'm not going to be going home and be able to cook a meal, or I'm not going to be able to pick the kids up from school. I'm going to be too tired. So you're not going to stop picking your kids up because you can't. But you know that by going that overboard, you're going to suffer. So the next day you've got to make provisions to recover. So you can, and you've got to gauge it each day, and you're going to be off one day and better the other days. But it's a technique and an instrument you learn and meet those challenges and improve. It's not, and you don't even have to get any spoons out of the cupboard, or it's just to get it in your mind, so you know how to keep it in your mind as you go through the day. There's no hard work to it, but it's the principle you need to understand, which is how much it costs you normally, how much you realistically got, and how much each task got. So a little task, you'd give it the value of like a teaspoon, and it's not completely accurate, but you get the idea. So a little task, you've got to do all this and all this and all that and that. You've got to go and do that, and you've got to go and do that. You've got to ring this, and you got that, and you've got potentially other things that could go wrong in the day. So you just see what you can spend, and then you stick to that. You go, right, that's enough to manage, but that's going to have to fall by the wayside until another day. And even if it doesn't get done, it's not the end of the world, and it's not going to cause any real serious problems, like decorating, for instance, or putting the hoover around, for instance. It's not going to make the world crash, for one day. That you might be doing something every day, and then you can't do that every day anymore. So you do it once a week, or you squeeze it in when you can, or you get someone else to do it. You delegate or ask for a bit of help in that area. So it's down to each individual to manage, but it's just a principle of managing that realistically, sensibly, so you don't burn out, you don't make it worse. You can get on with a normal life with the limitations, and you can even have improvements in recovery and healing even, because if you're not in you're in a stressful environment, and you suffer from post-traumatic stress, it's just going to make you more anxious. So you have to take yourself out of that environment. That might be your job, that might be your family, and but it will have an effect on you. You can't deny it. It's going to have it's going to wear you, and you're going to break. And if you're in the same cycle, it's going to be you that gets back up and carries on going regardless, because no one else is going to do the task that you would, if you were to go, you're going to fill it. So it's about prioritising and managing and getting your house in order, if you like, getting your life. You can't get your house in order, your home in order, so you get yourself in order. Parents can't fix their children until they're fixed themselves. So if you've got no experience in an area and you want to teach your child, you can't. You're going to have to rely on somebody else to teach them. And if you don't know what it is they're teaching, you're not relying on, well, is that right or not? I'm just trusting that it is because that person's been to university. And that's where if you haven't got the ability to know what they know, and just don't take it for read that they all know what they're talking about and they never put a foot wrong, having that sort of blinker pulled over your eyes, and most people, frighteningly, most people do live like that. So that spoons thing was to manage chronic injury, chronic pain, chronic illness, disability, fatigue, whatever, and that does make a real, whoever thought of that, but the person who shared it with me put it that way, and I don't know who to give the credit to, but credit to the people who share it, and credit, to the person who first come up with it, because I didn't, and all credit and glory to God for, giving us the ability to come up with these things to help others. It really made a difference to my life, because it made me see that I was just wearing myself out. So I had to. The only one who's going to take the reins was me, because no one else is concerned, no one else cared. So I'd have just been walked into the ground. And you're trying to live no one likes giving up their independence. I'd hate to take anyone's independence away from them unless I had to. And this is the thing with my dad. I don't want... It's horrible it comes a time where it's done, it's decided for you, and there's nothing you can do about it. But up until that point, you should never rob anyone of their free choice and their independence until they can't deny it anymore, and they're a danger to themselves and others. And that's the sort of place my dad's got into. I'm not a danger to him in any willful way. I'd be a danger for him because I'd be wearing myself out excessively and injuring myself, which is a danger to his well-being and being cared for. I had that concern, but they thought I didn't, and I was selfishly trying to keep my dad a prisoner. Absolutely not. I was just managing my needs. They don't take into consideration what they themselves put my mother through and my family, and they're picking up where we've been dropped off and left with. It's complete. These are people are complete blind bats, and they won't take. They're a law unto themselves. They're deluded in their. It's the way they're cultivated in the education system, that they're raised up and certified, and they think that they are gods. I'm not saying that they sit there going, "Oh, I think I'm a god," but that position puffs them up. They become stiff-necked and haughty, and they know better, and they become the royal we. We are the professionals, you don't know anything. They're in that deluded, sharpened mentality. They treat you like an idiot, and it really does sharpen up the experience, because it sticks right through you, because it doesn't take any of your feelings, any of your needs into consideration, and you just get so anxious because you go, this blind bat could potentially kill one of my loved ones or one of your loved ones because of his mentality. But thankfully you got people around people like that who will dismiss that and remedy it and just get on with it and correct it. But it's when there's nothing like that in there to start correcting things and keeping an eye on things, and that's what we're losing. The front, if you read military history of World War II, you read about the Battle of the Bulge and the Germans' counter-attack and the Battle of Bastogne. There's only a few, I think it was I can't remember, I think it was just the Americans, and they had a very very weakened, hardened, severely hit with casualties and severely being hit with more casualties, and they were like in a circle trying to hold off the whole German army advancing towards a strategic point which they had to defend, even knowing that they had no weapons, they had no winter clothing, and the temperature going minus, there's snow on the ground, frosty, and they had to hold that line, and there's artillery bombardments to soften it up before the advance. So they knew the enemy were approaching, and they were flanked, and the enemies patrols were walking into the enemy lines, straight through it and back out without anyone seeing it, because they were so thin, so dug in, and so thin on the ground and tired. But they by the grace of God and by their just sheer heart, hung in there, and they held back the the whole advancing German army. That's why it's a bulge, you see, Battle of the Bulge, because it stopped this massive blob expanding out into the world. And you had this weak little feeble hard nut, you know, these were veterans, these were paratroopers, I think, in the majority, American paratroopers. But that was held off. And that's kind of an analogy of what is breaking down in our society, is those sort of people are thin on the ground, you see, and then what fills its seats is this blob on the outside, this mass, the Nazis. It's the same spirit and mentality as we're seeing today, and you can see the what happened to the Jews, the crafting of opinion, having intelligence. You think all of your intelligence is correlated. I went round, visited my auntie, invited in, I sat at the table, and my auntie was on the phone to my cousin. We had an exchange. That would be recorded, you see, and someone who see that can have access to that without any authority, like nefarious access, and then go, oh, they're COVID breakers, you know. They're the ones that are not, and you'd go on a list, you see. Oh, they're breaking the restrictions. Now I can't speak for my family, but I did break. I can't say I didn't break the violation then. I did, but I don't do that every day, all the time, and I don't know. They were in their own home, and they're in their right to be there. You know, and I was prepared. When I visited, I knocked on the window. I was prepared just to speak through the window, but the circumstances, there's nothing that's going to stop that circumstance, because it's one of those times I may never see them ever again, and vice versa. So I had to make the best of it, and so we made precautions. We all had hand gel. No one had any COVID symptoms. So I was invited into that secure bit. Even their own family don't go around there because of the COVID restrictions, but someone might look at that and go, they're all COVID breakers. Put them on a list and pass that on to the lawful authorities. With lawful authority, they're COVID breakers, and then they'll be, given dirty treatment, and they phone up the hospital, they go to the doctors because they've been put on a list. And this isn't beyond the realms of possibility. This is how people manage in administration. This is how they manage people. This is how the Department of Work and Pensions treat people. Off their own, they measure you by their own self-righteousness and what we should be doing, because they're in charge. It's completely unlawful, but they do it because they think they know better, and they know better than the law. And that's the truth. And if you can't see that, you become a victim to it. So these things can be, these people have access to everything. Criminals, the underworld, people in the high establishment. It's there. And they've always had a hand on it. Hospital records, all your information. It's like a shadow intelligence. And the lawful intelligence have to go through the lawful procedure to have access to what they have access to all the time. So these intelligence bodies can misabuse the information available to them for the wrong reasons, to get their own way, to score points. You can't, like I said about the bank manager, there's nothing stopping a double agent getting into the military intelligence and authority to make those decisions and make the wrong decisions on purpose to ruin things. But it's all to do with crafting of minorities and people. So the way that if you think about minority groups, right? Families are a minority, but not all families are minority individuals. But in a global scale, the family is the last thing to be thought about, and the individual's rights within that family, right down to the single unit of the individual. So the public are a minority compared to the dominance and excess of the injustice. But some of the public are in support of that injustice because they're blind and they go along with it. So they're not in the minority in that sense, but the public body are a minority viewed by the mass of injustice. So that families are a minority in that sense. They're last to be thought about, just like the minorities within every family. They're the least to be thought about amongst the least of the minorities. And then there's families, the public body, you know, everybody, all of us. And then you've got minority races, or the way that these are viewed as minorities. Or treated as minorities. And then you've got handicapped people, they're a minority, and then you've got individual people within that bracket that are handicapped. Some are in a more minority, some get a lot of treatment, some are in a minority that don't get any treatment. You know, life's so complicated to measure accurately because you've got to take a lot of consideration. But the minorities in this world are, to the world, that the true minorities are born again Christians. They're the minority of minorities because they've got the truth, and those behind the public and the mass also know that we have the truth, because we point them out to the public, so they go after us under the ignorance of the public. So we are the minority, just like the Jews are in the same position. But like the Jews, unlike the Christians, get in the world and get on the bus, so that diminishes their minority status, or the effects of being treated as a minority upon the whole body, because some of it are agreeable with it. But all Christian, majority of Bible believing, born again Christians are in a minority because they're united in the same view that who the enemy is, and so they are the number one target. And I am in that minority, but I'm also in a minority because of my social status. I'm in a minority in my social status within my family. I was the youngest, and I'm a minority because I've got a disability. And I'm in the minority because I've got a disability that is yet to be understood, because the people who regulate the diagnosis know very well they can exploit the disability under the noses of ignorance, and the people in the legal bodies don't see the twain, although they've come from the same school of thought. But they're only half of the school of thought. They don't see the nefarious school of thought. It's like social engineering. People go, they don't craft and deceive. Well, just read social engineering and the techniques, and that all links up to the same psychiatrist, military, Nazi, pagan philosophies and ideas, and it's all a route all the way through the whole lot. Even the attitudes of the education system, that sharpening, it all comes from the same root. Because it's that root is the enemy to the human race, and that's what we are experiencing on a daily basis, and that's what I'm trying to highlight and warn people. Get out, come out of it, wake up, get the knowledge, save yourself. Not only save your soul, but save your circumstances, your life from your circumstances as you are. Come to the Lord as you are, no matter what you're doing, no matter what circumstance you're in. No matter how much sin you've done, or how much things you're trying to hide from, come to the Lord, He'll remedy it. and then you put you on the next page, which it'll be all gone and swept away. Then from that point you can manage your life better than you were, and you can start to save yourself, because you are saved now, and that he will start saving you, and you will be saved. So you'll be saved, you're being saved, and your salvation's a guarantee, because you've already tasted it at the beginning when you called on Jesus to ask for him and to accept what he's done. Then he gives it to you. Then you see it that moment, then you live by faith, and then you lose sight of it, and it's back there, you're restored, and then you carry on, and off you go. That's what I'm trying to invite and then highlight through my experiences, all these little anomalies about the devil and the fruits of the devil, and the fruits of those who are agreeable to that spirit, the organisations, the components, the methods, the administrations, the crafty, deceitful, dirty tricks, like consters, conners, people who are dirty tricksters, rogues, like to scam people, set up, little scams, confidence tricksters. They work a group. You know what I'm talking about. It's just the same mentality, and it's rife throughout all the world, because it's potentially in everybody, and that's what needs remedying. What's in the heart, not the world. The world, if the heart was changed, the world would sort itself out. If you sort a family out, you sort the individual out, then that individual is a partner, and that partner sorts themselves out. Those two sorted out parents will sort out everything else within their home. They can't sort out the world. You can only share what's helped you to be sorted out, and that's Christ. So the minorities are exploited, and I am in that minority bracket, and I'm just shut out of the world. And because I stand up for the truth, I speak out against injustice. So that puts me, like, as Christians, in the Protestant bracket. You protest against Roman Catholicism, so that you're a target in that sense, because you're protesting. It's like when you defend the faith of the gospel, you're protesting against the truth, against the enemy of righteousness, all of them. So they all target you because they don't want their boat to be rocked, because they got their own agenda of building up their kingdom with their religious system and their lies and their God, in the name of God. It's like religion uses Jesus, but it's all in bed with all those other crooks. And they don't know it, because they're deceived, because they think they're doing God's service, building God's kingdom, because they haven't received the kingdom, what Christ, the nature of God in their hearts, for that kingdom to be a reality in the future. Not on the earth now. The kingdom isn't going to come now, and it's not going to come through religion building it with the world in tow and the Jews involved, and then they build their kingdom trying to fix the world. Not that kingdom from either race, the Jews or the Gentiles, the UN and the Europe and all the world powers. They're not going to fix the world and get a kingdom established. Only those lawful nations who are righteous know that, or they know that they're limited to what they can do. They either separate, but they can't fight the majority of, because it's been agreed, it's been covenanted for, and you're either in it or you're against it. So you've got to determine, well, which nation is in it, involved with it, 100%, which is making its mind up and not sure, and which is resisting and trying to fight it. Well, in our nation we got, it's in our DNA to stand up against this tyranny and this Nazism, because it's just what it is. It hasn't gone away, and it's going to be worse than it has before, and I can see all the signs of the patterns, what the Jews went through, and the Europeans, the propaganda. Finding out who's on that side, who's on that side, who's going to comply to their scheme, who's going to resist it, and then they can manage between bubbles, between the cracks, all the problems covertly, and they use other minorities. This is one example of minority exploitation. They go to someone and lie and use a deception of a minority who may be in a pinch, or they may threaten them and threaten one minority to act upon another one, but they don't know what it's all about. Because they're compromised, they will do it for whatever they've been promised to relieve their own compromise. So one minority group can be used against another minority group. There's so many means and ways. And like these peaceful marches and rallies and activism is always it's either led and generated. If it's grassroots and it's a genuine cry for justice, it will be infiltrated and blocked and destroyed. Well, that will be the goal. And then it'll be managed limitation by keep your mouth shut, just chuck some conflicting stories in the newspaper to cause indifference, and that can peel another load of attention away from it. See who's crying about it still, and then deal with them whatever means. And so you can get a pinch on a criminal, and have a criminal lawful officer get a pinch on that criminal and say, look, I'll let you off, but you got to do this for me. It's that kind of thing. If you don't do it, I'm going to arrest you. If you do it, I'll let you go. You can't prove that I'm blackmailing you or twisting your arm, because we're in private. And I can just go and tell all my colleagues, you've done this when you didn't. Make your life a misery. And that person might compromise themselves and be in that person's pocket to be exploited. It's not, it happens, and has happened. So that's how minorities are exploited. And I was just considering how, these, and it also could be propagated by giving a false impression about a group by a story on the media, turning people away from the truth, what's really going on. And I was just thinking, I wonder how gypsies, travellers, could potentially be exploited to create an effect upon people's opinions of what these people, what the story is and what's actually really going on around it. So they could be played and exploited and brought in to cause controversy. That's another way minorities are exploited. Or like this Black Lives Matter, Windrush generations. You get all these people that are promised. So I used to question, you've got all these I remember all these corner shops. Every corner shop had an Asian in it and a Sikh and you go, well, what? I don't have a problem with any of these people, but you think, well, how come these could afford, these have just moved into the country, they've been given immigration status, where did they get the money to have a shop and all the residents that come with it? So if they had the money to come over here, what reason were they, my point is, we're not told what's said to them, what agreements they make in their country, and we don't know what happens when they get here, whether they discover what they've been told is true, and do they ever speak up against it, or are they being utilised, are they being promised something, like the corner shop, oh, you can be our eyes and ears and we give you protection, and we trust you, but we would like you to do this because we're like an intelligence network and we like to care for the community. But what they really meant is, we'd like you to think we'd care for the community, but we want to use you to gather intelligence and do certain things for us when we ask you. They might go, yeah, right, you can have a shop. is, or you don't know, I'm just saying. You try and buy these residential shop things are like gold dust. If you own a shop and the house above it, and you're the leaseholder, right, A, you want to see how much the rent is for one of those a day if you don't own one, and also how much the rent is for one of the flats above it if they've been separated, because some people do separate it. They lease a house to one person, lease a house to a business, and so it takes the power of both away from the business, so you're doubling up your profits. But they are really expensive, and the rent will break any business before it gets off the ground. It's spent more money than it could possibly earn, almost. It's ridiculous. And these were given, and every Asian corner, every corner shop was Asian all of a sudden. And I go, well, what are these people told? What are they promised? We never have that conversation with these people. And then you get the media, and then the resentment of, hang on a minute, that's been dumped on our estate. We've been robbed for the last 6, 7, 8 generations, and we're being blocked here, there and everywhere. And you get these privileged people, then you get these people stirring racial comments, then it foments that attitude among people, then that's held up on the camera, everyone's like that, and then it causes this racial tension and segregation and manipulation of these two groups. People don't see the whole picture. It's to saturate our values. It's to saturate the British population who have all those values, to Europeanise it, of all the Polish, of all the immigrants. And these Polish people, that we've all met them, they're all, most of them are decent family people, they're honest, but they're being exploited. These Asian people are exploited. The Windrush generation are exploited. The British-born civilian, wherever you've been here for a long time, or you just moved in, anyone who's born in this country is exploited. And then they play it, it's racial prejudice, so you're against immigration's good to the country. No, it's all snake oil. It's to exploit these people, to break down and saturate values and your ability to think. It gets too out of hand, and then the only people who manage it are the people orchestrating it. This is what we broke away from. That's what Brexit was about. It wasn't about prospering and having everything we want. It's about, we'll never get anything we want in that prison, in that yoke. That's what people were fighting against. Realistically, it's not going to happen, even if it's in writ, because they do everything they can to get you back into that agreement that it's going to be a one world controlled world, a committee of these unelected, proud, arrogant god makers, because they've been elevated up these systems, whether that's education, Freemasonry, the Illuminati. They're all the same degrees. There might be different numbers of degrees, but they're all up. It's all towards the same thing, to making you think that you're a god of men. It's complete vain delusion. That's what the devil does. It deceives men by their own vain imaginings and lusts, their own delusions of grandeur. And they get into those seats because they compromise, because they're prepared to compromise others, because they're just completely deluded. And then that raises up the whole world in that vein, and everyone has to follow through, and it's woven into the normal apparatus: education, training, social opinions, all shaped, liberal, wet, useless, indifferent, and it goes with the status quo. Oh, you can't speak out against, everyone's got a right. That's a complete flop. It's a complete fob off. It doesn't stack up, because all those rights rob my rights, so there is no rights then. And it robs other people of their rights, because it's all sponsored by money and the people who propagate it. And you get all the ignorant who can't even be bothered to look, vehemently defending it, saying you're a homophobe, or you're anti-immigration, or you're an Islamophobe. and our history and our establishment clearly historically has recorded, and it's got it in its memory and history, what Islam is, what Roman Catholicism is, and all the enemies and ideas of our nation's principle and founding beliefs and values and laws, all undermined by all of these, and they're the dominants. So we are not what we should be, and we're not being true to our own identity as law-abiding British citizens, or law-abiding English people, or law-abiding Welsh people, Scottish people, Irish people, wherever you live on the British Isles, in this nation, in this area of the world. We're not being true to ourselves, we're not being true to the law, we're not being true to family values and love. We're being true to, we are obeying the voice of disobedience, and the world is obeying the voice of serving the mammon, and the master of mammon, which is the devil, which is all these capitalist, greedy devils who work through secret societies and religion and get into power, get into government, compromise, work upon with their instruments of compromise to get their own way, to get their laws passed, to blackmail politicians in their youth before they even know that they might be a prime minister one day or a politician, but they're got the talent, and these people watch out for people like that. So they've got all the profiles, because they've had their fingers in all the hospital records from the beginning. They've had their fingers in it all from the beginning, just like the authorities have got their fingers in it. But unlike the authorities who go through the proper procedure set up by lawful authorities who wrote the procedure, you get people who get into the authorities and don't take any notice of it, so it becomes useless. So I just wanted to highlight these things. So the pattern I've noticed today is that same conditioning, but it's in a different dress, of what the precursor to the conflict of World War, when the realisation and the World War II got going and caught fire. What was going on before that major event was what's going on in our country, was going on in Europe, was going on in Germany. It's a preparation for, it was being worked upon, crafted. And then the eyes that were crafting it were also sifting out where they thought people are going to go politically either way. The same mentality is played out with immigration, planting, using the same lies. It's good for the country. And then they vehemently defend that there's no problem in the NHS. They speak for all doctors. There's no problem in the NHS. They put their doctors on the telly. They don't put all the doctors on the telly and have a debate. No, they put a doctor who either a liberal wally, goes along with the flow, don't really look about it, don't care about anyone else, just his own practice and his own ego. Now he's been invited on the telly, and they say, they say exactly what they want him to say or her to say. But it's not the truth, because our country's been overburdened. The NHS has been overburdened because they want to privatise it. And this hand it's always had its fingers in its business. It can always get access to all the records, and it can interfere and manipulate the information like it can with our technology. It can pull up what's going on in your home. It can play one family against another family. There's so much potential for exploitation that it's not even considered. And if it has been considered, it hasn't been told us that it's been considered or a threat, because it's taking that right for us to decide decide one way or the other. Oh no, they don't want to keep you in the dark, and then it's exploited because we're kept in the dark. So these things are a reality, they're historical, and the striking things is how this social engineering works, like the hypocrisy of if you're out on the road and someone's speeding, you're not going to try and pull them over, are you? Chase them up the road and arrest them. All you can do is call the police, right? And then the police take them off the road, right? In this report, in these people that aren't wearing masks, now, yes, it's true that every civilian has a responsibility to the duty to the law, but when that's so unjust and it's all hypocrisy and lies, people who are law-abiding aren't going to go and report everybody for not wearing a mask. You'd be spending all day doing it. And the hypocrisy is they've got security cameras in every part of our lives, and they could just flag up that, and where there's a problem, and they could send plainclothes people to address it. They don't even have to arrest everybody. They could just hang around there till they resolve all the local people that keep doing it, take them aside, give them a quiet word. No, they withdraw any of that, any sensible solution that how a problem solver would address a problem in the local area or on a ward or anywhere. No, they strip you of that. So you got to go to ask for their permission, and it'd be like a lie. And it won't get done. It'll be no, stand back, let the public do it. No, what that means is that no, let the public ring up. We're not going to respond to those phone calls. It's a nonsense. We just want the public to get used to this, being our eyes and ears and being obedient to our rules. That's what it's about, not the content, not the result. It's about you going through that conditioning process. You putting on your bubble and getting used to it and accepting it. It's about accepting. You accept calling the police. You become, and they're unlawful, and you're blindly supporting it because you're not aware of it. Then you are guilty of it. So if you start reporting everybody and think you're the upright citizen, you're being conditioned to be their little spy on the ground. And there'll be loads of little toffee-nosed, self-righteous people, and they'll go, look, we got somebody over here who's breaking the thing. And what you don't realise, that person's being victimised and he hasn't broken the thing. And they just tell you has, and you're sharpened in your self-righteousness. You go and attack him in the community. I've had it thousands of times. This is how they exploit Masons. They sharpen up their opinion. This is how they exploit doctors. They sharpen you up with a lie, they drop it in. Oh, by the way, he's a pedo. All it takes, a phone call from another professional liar. Oh, he's abusing his dad, but we can't prove it, but he's abusing him. We've got, we just need to gather in evidence. Keep him away. That person isn't going to check all the facts. They're just going to think, yeah, we don't want him near it. We just lie then, just to get on with the day. Just little things like that, and it happens. It's there to happen because it's not been guarded against, because people are taking their eye off it and becomes sloppy. The front line's breaking down. There's people in this country, at the top, in the government, in society that see this, but in a minority they're one of those little thin-lined people. What happens when those go and they're dead, and then the whole army, the whole Roman army, the whole Nazi takes over the world? Look at Mengele, all the experiments they've done on their own people, working, then on the Jews, all this social engineering, how do we control, how does this work? In all areas, medical, they tested altitude, how much altitude a person can take, so they could build altitude suits for their pilots. So they create the atmosphere where people die, and they got so many people that they consider dross or Jews or weak people in their society that are expendable. They experiment on them. Oh, they're no good for society. They're not entitled to a life. Because we know best, and we are the gods, and we are the leaders of this world. We are the cream. We are the the elite. It's the same in everyone. You know, what was in the Nazis is in your classroom, it's in your family, it's in your college. It's potentially everywhere. But when it's being driven and encouraged by the mass of it, the core of it, watch out, and that's what's happening. So we're getting this conditioning. All these people that walk around the wrong way of the supermarket, why aren't the supermarkets? Security, they're all over the place where I've been shopping. But you're still getting these people everywhere. Security guard ain't dealing with it. He's policing the customers coming, the law-abiding customers, keeping them regimented. And then all walking around you, getting all these people coming up to you. I know it happens by accident, and people are. You accept that. It's just part of life. But when it's willful, in your face on purpose, and that same security guard that's sorting you out and correcting you at the door if you step out of line is turning a blind eye to it going around the shop, because it's meant to be going around the shop. So how much participation have the shop management in that? Oh, withhold, draw back. Or the influence upon the security guard, what he should deal with and what he shouldn't deal with. Oh, let the public call the police about these people, plant the people, so it generates a cause for the public to be having to do that, when they're quite capable of doing it themselves. The supermarket, nipping it in the bud, and they've got security cameras. Why don't they pass them on to the authorities? Let the authorities do the arresting and pulling the speeders over the motorway, rather than dumping it on the public like they do with environmental tax. And then you've got to lump all these other hypocrisy ideas like no hard shoulder on motorways, automated cars, where they've already had fatalities with them. You know, it's get their own way on the table, get their infrastructure, their architecture. And you need to look, well, who's behind these architecture buildings? It's not individuals, grassroots individuals coming up with ideas and it's having an impression on the world. No, those individuals are robbed, they're snatched, and the only way they can get their idea on the world is compromised by going on the platform provided for them, which is controlled by these people, by this evil, by this heart and mind and will to have its own way over the right way. So anything in this world you think is a good idea, dynamite, look what happened to dynamite. Nobel Peace winner, prize winner. And what happened to all the information with it? Well, it done a lot of good in less areas, but it was exploited. That's the nature of our world. And we've always known that, and there's a time where that was kept at bay. You can't get rid of that. Even if you get rid of that in people for a period, that mentality will get back into the hearts of people when you go slack, and then it dominates, and it's dominating. And that's in the Bible, what's called Lucifer. He's a real spirit. Satan's a real spirit. Lucifer's a real fallen angel with that spirit. And that real spirit is moving all this in the hearts of men. Just like God, Christ, and his spirit are in the believer. And that has effects on the world for good. And everyone's got the capability to serve good, either serve one of those spirits or the other one of those spirits, whether wittingly or unwittingly. But everyone needs saving, and everyone needs to be born again to know the truth for themselves, so they can establish all these things themselves and study. I'm just been there, had some experience, and I'm sharing my experiences with anyone seeking experience to go and get that experience for themselves, on top of all their other experiences, will be increased by that experience of belief. So I wanted to cover the minorities, the exploitation, to try and get in the mix these activities that I've seen, witnessed, active in this experience with my dad, which sounds, you know, I just sound erratic and irrational. But my rationality is affected by these lies and this unguardedness to the potential of a Catholic coming into a Protestant or a Catholic advocate Doesn't mean it's a Catholic person who probably wouldn't do that, but somebody of that orchestrated that, but they might not necessarily know it's towards Roman Catholicism or something else, like another indirect serving the same cause but not directly from that, like a corrupt government trying to cover up and silence someone, like Dr. David Kelly, where they fitted him up and tried to make it look like a suicide and then they deny it. When you look at it, you know, there was no lawful coroner. So all the circumstantial evidence is there to show that what I said is a fact. But there's been no proof, because you were stopped from getting any proof, and there's been propagated lies, and that's the end of that. But you go and ask his family, see what they suffered about it and what they believe and what they know. They don't get a voice on the telly, do they? And it doesn't get heard, and if it does get heard, it's not going to be up there constantly played every day through the week, like all the rubbish we're pumped with, all the propaganda we're pumped with all the week from the news, of what we need to be doing on the, you know, update, need to be doing. Why are we going through the BBC when the BBC is like attacking them 1 minute? What does the BBC stand for? You know, most of these presenters are Roman Catholic, because that's the profile, the sort of presenters they want to toe the line on the television. And those characters can be manipulated and engineered and sharpened, and their views bias through their own weaknesses and self-intellect and self-righteousness. They could be perfectly utilised by these clever people who craft, who profile, headhunt, place that thing where they want them, because it's going to have an effect. We don't see all that goes on, we just take things as read. Well, I'm talking about the general public and how you're conditioned to think, which conflicts with your own intelligence, you know, with everyone's own intelligence to a good degree. Some people are quite figure it out quite quickly. Other people take a long time to figure out what's going on in the world, in any degree, because they're disabled. So it's all out there to be discovered, and I'm going to round off because I'm tired, and I'm just going to be saturating this with the same thing. That I think the key words from these videos is the minority groups, the hypocrisy of what the world portrays on the media as life and factual, and then to look at the real reality and the facts and the hypocrisy of all these Black Lives Matter, because all the things that do matter don't ever get a mention, and it's not on the public's mind and attention, because what they want, what the telly's for is to keep your mind and attention full of their news rather than what reality. So it become an illusion, a spell it puts people under, because your telly's on every day, and then you rely on your news for telly, so it keeps you away from relying on, you know, what they're not telling you on the telly, and any bias in it, unless you're looking for that bias and you can see it on the telly. And then you just pick out among it what is really going on, and you try and read between the lines, but you don't really get any news, you just get dictate. Not direct dictate, but status quo dictate. Oh, this is the rules now, you'll have to, what? And then that's the dictate. So just to question all the hypocrisy of this, you know, this equal rights stuff and this climate change, how people are exploited, how grassroots ideas are exploited, destroyed, or they compromised by going into the hands of the people causing the problem, and they try and take advantage of that relationship even further. wounding the person and the cause that they're trying to be an activist for. No, there's no use being an civil rights activist. You know, it's there's a reason. The reason you understand that there's a problem is right, but being an activist is not going to ever solve. It's not going to get the bully off the it's not going to get the king off the castle, right? It's just going to bring your attention to the king on the castle, and he's going to manage you, and he's going to let you manage on his world. Unless you've got divine help, and you don't put your trust in these, and you go independent. But if you put your trust in these people, and then they set you up the stage, they order your flights, they buy your tickets, and you just stand in front of the telly, you've been exploited. Because what your true cause is, they want to own it and turn it into their cause. So when you're not on the telly, they're still working on your cause, what you brought to the attention. Now all they're doing is managing the attention with a lie, and then to use that lie to take advantage of and overburden people further in the future with climate tax, regulations, lockdown, curfews. You know, and there's a lot of true things, principles within this application that are necessary, but the way they're not being followed through, it's all slippy sloppy. And then you've got this propagated, it's nothing, you know, people, you've got half of society, it's all a load of nonsense, I don't really believe there is a virus. And then you've got people thinking, being responsible, they really do believe it's what they say it is. Then you've got people that, perhaps like myself, don't know what it is, don't believe anybody what it is, but knows it's a reality, it could kill people. So there's a more nefarious motive in it. So you would stick to those principles of what you've been asked to do, because it's what I would do in my home. And what I wanted to do sensibly from the start, evaluating in my own circumstances, was not go out, but I was blocked from doing that. So I had to go out. And they're telling you to stay at home while they're blocking you from going, you know, so you can't get food. And they're forcing old people down the shops who also can't get food because they ain't got the internet. And the public body hasn't realised that they've tried to qualify for places and they've not got it, where other people have applied and got it no problem. And no one's looking at what's going on and how the vulnerable are exploited. And another thing is care homes, like Freemasons and all these charity organisations have got a lot of interest in old people's homes, retirement homes, anywhere where there's a life going and there's an organisation. These people have an interest in it, and it's very disturbing because they encourage a lot of these Masons to set up charities for care homes. Now the people doing that may be genuine and doing it for the right reasons, but they're doing it for their masters. So if these people have association and they are honoured at these charities, that's trust, and that wins the support of the public and the support of the nefarious activity potentially behind it. Just like when you call out Islam is wrong to a politician, they defend it because they know loads of kind Islamists. Well, that doesn't make it right. Just because Muslims don't behave like what the principles of their faith teach, doesn't make doesn't justify the idea of what Islam is, and that's to lie. It's just like the Catholic Church, to lie, get your own way to get into power. For that, their power base to get into power. But if the Muslims got into seats of power in this country, what people don't realise is their leadership, although they'll tell you they didn't have a leadership, but their elders are all high-level Freemasons, but in their own version of Freemasonry. So the people behind it are involved with not only the Freemasons of the Islamic world, but they're involved with the Freemasons of the Christian world, and they can play both and create this game where the true Christians are nothing to do with either of them and speak out against both. But these will play this game together, all involved with it, and even people that are planted amongst it will propagate it and aggravate it, and that's another taking advantage of the minority Christians and the public and the family values and the rights for people, the law and our government. Islam is opposed to our law and our government, and if you support Islam, don't speak out against it, so are you. Homosexuality is against the moral standard of family values and society, so it doesn't decay and become wild and flaunting down its breasts down the street and getting its testicles out and waving them in public. That would have been an arrestable offence a few years ago, and you'd have been locked up to sober you up so you didn't do it again. And that's all sponsored. People run that. All the riots in London, if you've done a bit of investigation, it was all the football hooligan organisations fomenting that, and the kingpins planted within to raise up and cause hooliganism amongst the public body of family football supporters who got their season tickets, who've grown up in that tradition of going to football on a Saturday. Not me, but I know families around me that did. My granddad went to football every Saturday. My dad weren't bothered, I weren't bothered, brother weren't bothered. But you get these families that go just for the game, and then you'll get the organised element in it. And that organisation where operating propaganda sites online, stirring public opinion to riot. And then when the riots happened, and it was organised, it was lit and inflamed and fanned, and when the public it took off and the public took the bait, and the hook was pulled, and they start rioting, all these people that would never riot, they had to be ignited to do that. They had to be led and encouraged by this confidence trick. And I found all the components that were behind it and feeding it, because I could see this craft, this iniquitous craft, putting one person in the top of a chief to raise up the Indians. And it was one of those, like popularism. You know, you get all these people attracted to a blog because it's popular and everyone's licking his boots. And if you've got a serious question and you're not licking his boots, they don't want to know you. It's nothing about what they're teaching, it's what they want to get out of it. And it's one of those people who just like the popularity of it. That, you know, and that's a lot of these activists. A lot of any good intentions go sour because you can't control it. And you can't control, well, you could, but you got to be wise how to do it. To protest, to guard yourself against that infiltration and it being corrupted, so it can damage your chances of getting your voice heard. So all this exploitation and craft, so consider exploitation, consider what these things, not what they say or who they are or what uniform they're in, the public face. Look behind it and look at the apparatus. Look at the mechanisms, look at the rules, look at the oaths and covenants and principles of these places. Then you'll see that. Look at the paganistic history, the Babylonian mystery schools, the magic, which all comes into spiritualism, gnosis, witchcraft, magic, black magic, white magic, mediums conjuring up spirits, communicating with spiritual beings, spiritual forces. Look at all this, it's all related, it's all associated. Social engineering, military science, experiments, psychology, psychiatry and the mentality and the components and the social engineering knowledge they have, you'll start to see it's all one of the same thing. The control is all one of the same. So you need to look at, the key word was exploitation, and the title was The Minority of Minorities, so I'm just going to close there. Invite people to consider these things if they've not done so before. If it's new to you, that you really won't learn much more from the content, but you may learn something else for all I know. But I'm just doing it to share, to help anybody in any way I can. Glorify the Lord, testify the Lord, thank the Lord, share my life experience, share my testimony, share my experiences. Just want to wish my brothers and sisters a blessing. I pray that they'll be blessed, they'll be covered, they'll be filled, their lamps will be full, their buckets will be full, and the word will have free course. People are being helped. The Lord will meet our needs where we stand, and we will receive what we need. The Lord will come through on those needs, and we can trust Him, even if it's not the way we expect it to. And I pray for the gospel to go forward, those with the greater responsibility to be safe, and like everyone, but to be blessed, protected, and to win souls, win friends, win support, win prayers, anything, to help them in their responsibility, and as the Lord wants that for all of us, but particularly the people who are out in the street and out all the time, every day without fail, doing the Lord's service. Double honour to those, because that's what we're instructed to give them, double honour, double consideration, and pray for them, and support them in ways that we feel moved to. I pray that the government the Lord's with our nation and all nations, doing all He can to assist them in working out this COVID, this horrible COVID. I pray our government will be humbled, and it will be honest, true to itself, true to our heritage of our law, our God, the Holy Bible, the King James, true to the King James and the Bill of Rights, true to, within a realistic, within the compromise that we've been left with historically to be true. And to steer us to quench any outbreak, and to guard those, be aware of those activities and breaking down as a front line. And then that may, hopefully that will work its way top down to the public with a bit of truth, rather than this cold porridge and gruel that we're fed, saturating all the good things that are in it. I don't deny there's good things and good people on the telly. It's just the framework and the saturation of corruption and manipulation and craft. Look at the craft, what crafting is, the architect, who the grand architect, what these people believe, what they say they believe and what they do. Look at Mormonism, their oaths. Look at the Jehovah's Witness establishment. Look at the Seventh-day Adventist establishment. Look at the Church of England's establishment, the Anglicans. Look at the Orange Order, the so-called Protestant Christians, and that's a sort of Freemasonry. But they don't see any wrong with it. Catholics say, we don't do Freemasonry, but they've got the Jesuits of Freemasonic craft. It's just not called Freemasonry. It's the same rite. The Scottish Rite was a model of that, their rites, and you got their beliefs and structure. And then you've got the lawful principles of the nations that are not like that, they're not that model. But sadly we have been lifted up and raised, whether by deception, whether by compromise. That's the model of government. And head of state has been, what's ever going on, that's the position that we are in. I don't know the reasons and why that is completely. I'm learning, I've only got an idea, but just ask these questions. The hypocrisy, the exploitation and the craft and the historical knowledge of all these things. So I'm going to close there, wish everybody a blessing. Anyone who's come to find this, who's not saved, I pray you will be helped, and you'll be blessed, and you will come and seek and knock and come to have a knowledge of the Lord as I. That invitation's for everybody who doesn't know the Lord. That's why the Lord died, so everybody may know him personally, that he could adopt them, that they could be his child and he could be their father, their heavenly father, and beloved, and to know that love. So I'm going to close there and give my thanks to God, give the glory to God, and pray that this will be use in this service to his name, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.